other shit going on.
Like nobody on my channel ever accuses me of being on coke, but when I go on his thing, everybody accuses me of being on coke immediately.
You can see the droplets like by your nose and shit. Like, not saying it's coke, but like they're seeing everything. It might be like boogers.
Yeah, but they're on Taylor Swift for that today. You see that?
Oh, are they?
Yeah, because they got a photo of her where it kind of looks like there's some crusty stuff inside her nose. But from my expert opinion, these are not the kind of coke boogers that you could actually like say are coke boogers. Like it could maybe be the remnants of some coke, but highly dubious. And if you're really going to do coke before like an awards show, you'd be way better off doing like an Adderall, because you got to do coke like every 10 minutes.
Yo, Jack, can y'all see me or am I tweaking right now? Hold on. They might not be able to see me. Oh, no, they can't. All right, now they can see me. Chat, y'all can see me?
Okay, the chat is working. The chat's complaining, but I think they're complaining for like other reasons. Okay.
You don't go live a lot, do you?
Not really.
Hey, chat, this is perfect. Wait, well, I just gotta center it. Wait, fuck. I'm like retarded a little bit. Not really, but yeah. Discord. Oh, here we go. Great. Perfect. Let me make this a little bit smaller. Chat. This is gonna be great. All right. Perfect. I feel like you've been ducking me, man. I've been trying to call you for many times. Every time I call you when something's going down, you tell me you're fucking a bitch. I'm like, damn. I'm like, I gotta come to LA to see this motherfucker now.
Nah, I just wasn't giving you the gratitude of getting the first convo in the middle of Cutgate 2023.
You pretty much gave me the, like, you actually hit me up before. Well, kind of before. Well, actually, no, I saw it, like the little preview of it, and like on my like meme page, they're like, yo, no, this is real. And I was like, nah, this ain't real. So I hit you, and you were like, yeah, it's real. And you were like, no, yo, you can run with it. And I was like, oh, that's like the exclusive. Like, you're kind of giving me the exclusive. Because let's be honest.
No, it was already out there. I just told you, like, you were like, yeah, I'm not going to talk about it because it's your baby mama or whatever. And I was like, what? I was like, just talk about it. I was like, what are you fucking talking about? And in retrospect, like, there's no way you would have actually been able to avoid talking about it, right?
No. I could have talked about it, but respect. I think me and you, we've been through some shit, and we got to a point that especially when you married your woman, I was like, listen, a few little underhanded comments that I would hit you with the jab with, I wouldn't do it anymore because this is not your wife. This is distasteful. If I actually see you as a peer that I frequently collaborate with,
you think that the sanctity of marriage is such a big difference in that regard?
Yes. If it's your girl or if it's like some random girl you're smashing, bro, you gotta hold that. Your wife, because here's the thing. I'm also thinking, when I say wife, I'm thinking family, I'm thinking a kid.
Right.
So now every comment about her, I'm looking at it like, all right, it's one thing if it was your girlfriend. Now this is like your family for life. Like, for example, even with, and we're going to talk about it, the whole thing with like, say whack, which he was lying. He's like, yo, whack, yo, your girl got hit by a Blueface. Yo, it's one thing if it's like, okay, cool. Let's say if it was true. I'd be like, well, okay, now it's not my girl.
Hey, what if it is true?
It's not true. But here's the thing. Yo, if it was true, right? You know the easy way I get out of it, and just any guy gets out of it. Right. Just be like, I'm leaving, right? When it's your wife, you can't leave.
But you're talking about the sanctity of marriage, but the thing is that the thing that was to be discussed, the thing that was in the news, was me basically taking a huge steaming shit on the Institute of Marriage, or at least that's how I've been led to believe it was to be taken by the Candace Owenses of the world, who were very offended by me. Like, if we weren't married, it would not have been as big a deal, but to me, getting married was pretty much like whatever. Being that I don't believe in God or whatever, it was like a level of making it more serious, but it didn't really contain any like additional layer of, oh, the relationship is more serious. Now, we already bought a house together, started a business together, and had a kid together before we got married. So getting married was like not a bigger deal than the rest of the shit that we had already done.
So this is where we're probably going to get into the minutiae of probably where we disagree the most. Why get married? I hear everything you say, and I've heard you kind of reiterate these things before, but why even enter into a marriage? I know you're saying it's a different level of seriousness. I mean, already you guys have business tied together.
Right.
You guys already had a family. What more? Like, why do you think, if you don't really give a fuck about the sanctity of marriage, why did you think that marriage made what you already had going on even more serious? Or why did you do it?
It's like, if I turn 40 and I don't have a birthday party, I'm still 40. You know, the party is just to like celebrate it and make it clear, make more people know about it, have a good time, etc. You know, a way to have like a celebration. And also, I think like from her perspective, especially growing up in the Armenian culture, which is kind of conservative, and they take marriage much more serious than I think that my atheist, punk rock, hip hop, whatever subcultures that I've been involved in my whole life, like. In hip hop, marriage is not really like, I mean, I guess it is important, but it's not really important to like most of the people that I spend time with or hang out with. But I think from her perspective, it's important. And for me, it was like, actually, to be honest, my mind changed a shitload as soon as I saw that kid get ripped out of the hole in his stomach, because that kind of made me realize like how permanently bonded to this person I was. And then all of a sudden marriage started to like appeal to me more. It's like, oh, okay, if I am as serious as I now feel about this commitment in this relationship, I might as well seal it with the thing that our culture has built, basically to make it clear that you're serious about your relationship, right?
So if I'm getting what I'm hearing from you, because also family is important, like family's very much important.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, like, for example, I'm being very, just all the way honest. If you never married Lena would be my number one. Like, if me and you had anything, is number one way to attack you. But once you married her, it means something to me. I understand that. Like, family means something. It's like, just like I would never attack your child. You get what I mean? Like, that is something that is sacred. I don't care. Like, and I guess I'm wondering, like, maybe is it just you or your whole family don't care about marriage?
No, I mean, my parents have been married for like 40 fucking years. My sister's married to the dude Josh on the channel who works here. Everybody in my family, I would say, takes marriage relatively serious, except me. Like, that was not all through my 20s when I was going to the bar and fucking and doing drugs and all this shit, and even in my early 30s and stuff. Never once did I think like, oh, I'm looking for the woman that I'm gonna marry. Like, that was not at the front of my brain at any point in my life until, really, honestly, though, I sometimes think about a relationship, and I think that in a way it was like a reaction to how fucking scary getting famous was, and how immediately like fake everybody around me immediately appeared to be as soon as I started to get like a certain level of notoriety, and just realizing of like, oh, like I can't trust anybody. Like, everybody around me is fake as fuck. And like, I met her around the same time and kind of realized at that time, like, oh, I might have fucked like 100 girls this year, but this girl's actually like, she really gives a shit about me. She really cares about me. She's actually a good person. And that's pretty much like the thing that like opened me up to even being in a relationship in the first place.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to start out by trying to get your definition. You could get mine if you care to as well, because it's probably gonna be the context and the pretext needed for any conversations we're gonna have, even if it's about your personal relationships to mine. Right? What does love mean to you? Because you're saying marriage means nothing. What does love mean to you?
I don't know. What the fuck kind of question is this? This is like a Valentine's Day question or some shit. I mean, I feel you. Like, obviously with her, it's like, I feel like we have a connection and a commitment to each other that emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever the fuck that means, etc., that we'll be there for each other. You know, it's like, I don't know if you're saying this in the context of like, how could you then be okay with another dude fucking her for content? But yeah, to me, that doesn't really like feel contradictory to the whole relationship thing.
Well, I asked that pretty much to know if you look at marriage, because usually for the regular people, marriage is usually the ultimate commitment and symbol of what love is, right? And that's usually built upon, we want to have a family, we want to have it under some type of covenant of God. And the reason why I ask you that is because I think a lot of people, and I think they correctly assume, and even I assume that your relationship with Lena is much more business than it is love.
No way.
Tell me how it's not.
I mean, we were together for like 5 years before we started the Plug Talk thing. And during that time period, I would say that we had like very little to do with each other business wise. Like, yes, she would come on No Jumper from time to time. And yes, I was, banging her for fucking OnlyFans or whatever. But the idea that our relationship is like business oriented, not at all. I mean, the Plug Talk thing kind of like took our relationship and made content out of it. But besides like her being in some vlog thumbnails and shit back in the day, I mean, she's almost never on the podcast. It's not really like a thing we do together. It's not really like her lane, right? Our relationship is like not business related at all, I don't think, besides the Plug Talk shit now.
So and help correct me. And this is my remembrance, or even the narrative that I believe that happened with you guys, right? I remember the first time I saw you guys were on my stream. And I remember at that point, you probably was early on. So like, it was probably relatively just like you guys probably knew. But as time went on, I felt that you knew that there, first of all, you're in LA, very different from where I'm at and on the East Coast, or where pretty much anybody else is at. I felt there was a synergy of where you realized that where you wanted to bring your brand, because your brand, I believe, say 2016, 2017, heavy hip hop. But of course, I think your personal, interest in what you kind of wanted to get into was much more than that, right? So now you're probably also going to all these parties. You're kind of interested in this adult entertainment world. She's also taking a liking to it. And this is where I say more business than just like personal and just love. And I know it sounds corny when I say it, but her business interests start to align with some of the interests you were having. Like, for example, if you were repulsed or if you weren't cool, like, say, with the porn world, as you guys were together, if she was having, like, hey, I want to kind of do this with OnlyFans or whatever, you would probably be like, hey, our interests are driving us apart. This is what I'm trying to say, and I'm trying to make an eloquent point of, I believe, because there's been business mutual interest, it's been the thing that's been underlying. I'm not saying there's no love there, but right. That's been the underlying thing that's gotten y'all to here. And y'all did the perfect move, which y'all should cash out at a certain point. This was a cash out move. And I know you don't believe in marriage. You don't give a fuck about it. But maybe you could say, and I don't know if you would admit it, if she was pressuring you, but you essentially kind of did it because, not saying for the scene, but you knew that was an eventual step as far as your business.
Well, I definitely knew it was more important to her than it was to me, as a person who just like never even thought about it, or never, like, my whole life I pictured that once I met a girl that I wanted to be with forever, or for a long period of time, that we wouldn't get married, we would just be very serious boyfriend and girlfriend. But in that regard, you got to remember too that in like 2016, when I started seeing her, porn was like a very different landscape where I never saw myself having any kind of involvement in it. And it seemed like there was just this massive like barrier to get over to be involved with porn in any kind of business way. Whereas like you get into like 2019, 2020, where OnlyFans is like taking over the world. And it's like, all of a sudden it just started to seem a lot more reasonable that like regular people could kind of get into this shit. Like when I first started to have any kind of clout on Twitter, like 2015, I probably had like 20,000 followers on Twitter or whatever. I was exclusively sliding in porn star DMs, just trying to hang out with them and try to go, lick some porn star ass, because this was just this aspirational thing to me. As soon as you get some level of clout. And that's why when I see somebody like Zion Williamson, I totally get it, because he's young as fuck. He starts getting money. He starts getting fame. All of a sudden, he can fuck a Mariah Mills. And yes, to like men of taste like us, we're kind of looking at Mariah Mills like, this is maybe not the best use of your time for a lot of different reasons. And, but for me, when I was first getting in the game, oh my God, I was so excited to be banging these fucking starlets that I was meeting on Twitter and shit. But I mean, I never had any kind of intention of getting into the porn business. Cause let me tell you something, is that when I met her, I could have, like, I was trying to convince her to become a YouTuber, right? Cause that was the game that I knew. So I'm like, yo, I'm going to get you lit on YouTube and you're going to be getting all these hundreds of thousands of views or whatever. And we thought up the whole scheme of like, oh, she's going to do a sex tape when she hits 1 million subscribers, which people don't really remember. But that was like the big viral thing.
And sex tape with who though?
With me. but that was in 2016, and she was like, she was in like the Phil
People
DeFranco
who did
thumbnail and shit.
who did that shit too, and she blew crazy up. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
There was a
yeah.
girl-
I mean, she got to 1 million subscribers from it, but my thing was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take 20% of your YouTube. She never made like any significant amount on YouTube. I think largely because the subscribers that you get when you like make that kind of content or whatever are going to be like foreign and like low paying CPM customers and shit like that. But then also, you know, she probably got like put in some kind of category of being like X-rated or whatever. But if I had said I need 20% of the OnlyFans early on, oh, that would have been the move. But I wasn't thinking about it like that because I didn't know anything about OnlyFans. OnlyFans didn't even exist when I got with her, for the record. But then even after that, when it came around, it was like that was not at the forefront of my mind. Now, keep in mind, you fast forward a couple of years and I meet a Sky Bree, and boom, we get her in the contract, which, by the way, just recently ended. So, you know, I feel a little bit more like at ease discussing it. But
be honest, how much did you offer? Keep it on it. Million? More? Off just manage? Nah, Sky Bree's one hot bitch.
That's what I'm saying. And bro, she came to the office to do a Patreon episode, and she was
you made $1 million?
A regular ass chick from Pennsylvania with 4,000 followers. And keep in mind, like, my girl was pregnant at this time, so I had to go home and say to my girl, like, listen, I know you're the size of a fucking house right now, and you don't feel sexy, and you know your vagina's doing weird things, and your nipples are turning super dark and everything. Like, you don't feel sexy right now. But I met a girl today, and I swear to God that she's a star, and we are gonna be fucking kicking ourselves if we don't sign her. And I battled through it, and I got the deal done, even though it was, at that time, it was a serious threat to my relationship because my girl was like not trying to hear this at all. But we made it happen.
Yo, Adam, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I had a perfect follow-up question, but I do have to segue to this. Do you believe that any of these actions that you've done has caused any potential psychological damage on the people who are eventually, you know, as I said, I still believe everything you're doing, I don't care what you're saying, is business minded. Hey, I'm gonna help you blow up on YouTube. Let's get to 1 million. We're gonna do a sex tape. You're hoping these are business moves. This is not, hey, listen, I love my girl. My girl has always wanted to be a YouTuber. No, you're thinking of a scheme like, let's get more money. Let's get more money. Okay, especially when your now wife is pregnant, big as a house, probably feeling insecure about herself. You're saying y'all just met this like young hot bitch from Pennsylvania, and I think we should like put our focus and our brands into her to blow her up. Do you ever stop to think to be like, hey, what's that doing to my relationship? Or even like, you know, now I see you stop posting your child online. Hey, maybe some of the comments, the weird comments and the weirdos trolling, you know, as your child eventually probably gets to know, or maybe like gets an iPad or whatever, they're probably going to either be bullied or whatever. Do you care about like the psychological effects of anything?
I mean, like, I had to manage that when I went to Lena and said, hey, I met this fucking girl who's super hot that we should sign or whatever. But you know, just to use the kid thing as an example, because I did stop posting her, where I was like, when we were on the honeymoon, even like 6 months ago or whenever that was, I was posting her nonstop. Then the fucking Jason Love arc, Jesus, the arc takes over. And then, yo, like, I had the worst shit happen. Like, if it, like, I probably would have been able to like keep posting her and not really think much of it, if not for this one thing, is that there was one dude who took a screenshot from a TikTok that Lena made last October that was like on her mom page, right? And so we all got face paint done. I was Bert, my kid was the Count, and Lena was Elmo. So all Sesame Street characters. And in the whole entire TikTok that's like a minute and a half long or whatever, there's like 2 seconds of her breastfeeding the kid, right? Well, some dude with 500,000 followers screenshotted the part with the breastfeeding, and then he took it and he posted on Twitter and he said, this is from the Plug Talk TikTok. Adam22 and Lena posted their child on their porn account. This is what he said, even though, again, it was on her TikTok mom page. He said that it maybe got like 30,000 likes or whatever. So this was a relatively successful tweet. And then I was talking about it, like, just to, you know, obviously you could say like, well, anyone smart or anyone who really cares about it is going to look into it and figure out that that wasn't actually the truth. I would say that Destiny is somebody that I have a good relationship with, and I was talking to him on a podcast like a week later, and I mentioned this exact thing and said how fucking annoying I thought it was, and Destiny goes, "Oh, that wasn't true?" He's like, "I saw that. I thought that was true." And I'm like, "What?" Like, so at that moment was when I was like, "Oh, this 100%, we just can't post our kid anymore," because even just giving anybody any tiny amount of ammunition like that, because like I want my kid to have a normal life, and I feel like I work hard because I want my kid to have a normal life where she doesn't have to like all these families like Ace family and shit who just basically use their kids for content. Like some people find it distasteful that we're out here having sex for content or whatever, but for me, I find the whole family vlogger thing to be like significantly more troublesome to me, because I've seen the incentives and where that leads people and how people end up fucking like having their kids fight and making up weird drama between their kids and using thumbnails that make it seem like their kid is in danger and shit like that. Like that's something that I don't want to fucking deal with at all. And I have a lot of respect for somebody like Casey Neistat, who he used to make vlogs with his daughters in them, and I would watch them and thought that they were great. But then, like, at one point, I guess something, I don't know if anything really happened, but he just stopped posting his kid. And, like, once in a while, he'll have a clip in the vlog where you can see, like, the back of their head or some shit, but he doesn't actually post them. And this is a guy whose content is squeaky clean, but he does have a lot of eyeballs on him, and potentially, you know, psychos and stalkers and shit like that could potentially be trying to do something to him. So to me, it's like, as long as we're going to be doing risque shit in the public eye, and in particular the fact I have nothing to gain from posting my kid online. In fact, like her being at preschool and shit, like I want her to be anonymous. Like she got like some no jumper baby shirts the other day that my sister made her, and I was just immediately like, yo, make sure she never wears these to school, because it's like I'm not really trying to have my kid have her life colored any more than it has to be by my life experience. Now, obviously, at some point, somebody's going to be like, hey, your parents have sex on the internet. In a perfect world, by the time she's old enough to really be dealing with that, we won't even be doing that anymore. I feel like I've talked to a lot of kids, or not kids, but like I've talked to a lot of people in the porn industry whose parents were in the porn industry as well, because in LA and Hollywood, that shit seems like it kind of gets passed down in some family lineages. And not even like people who actually like do real deal porn, but like I know a girl who does like a porn podcast, and her mom was a porn photographer. So like neither of them ever did porn, but they're both kind of like just been in the adult business, like they're fucking plumbers or some shit. But either way, like I'm not trying to have my kid be like exposed to that shit at all. And already I'm like super conscious of all the different ways. Like if we have a house party and Sky Bree and Angela White are standing there talking, and my kid goes over and stands next to him, it's like, if somebody takes a photo of my kid standing next to two porn stars, what's the immediate viral quote tweet that everybody is going to fucking jump on? Is just going to be, oh, look at them grooming her for this fucking, for her future career or some shit like that. So from my perspective, it's like, all right, I'm just going to make all this way easier and just be like, all right, your whole life is a secret until you get to the point where you can kind of like make some level of decision about if you want to be in the public eye or not, you know?
Isn't it too late though? And I guess, you know, ultimately I want to ask you the question of, I've always been confused about this with you in trying to figure out if there are tangible goals, or are you going down the path you're going down because you just genuinely love it, or you have a goal? Like, for example, some people, or this is usually the stripper's fallacy, as I call it, a girl who says she doesn't enjoy, you know, objectifying herself and showing her body. She's like, hey, I'm only in the strip club to make $100,000. I'm going to use that money to blah, blah, blah. Then I'm getting out of there. Right. And usually people are goal oriented, unless like they're just like, hey, this is just what I love to do. With you, like, you know, even as I heard you talk about like briefly and kind of vaguely, I understand why, because you don't want niggas pocket watch you no more. You were talking about the amount of money you made on or amount of money Lena made with that particular scene. I've been waiting for you to be like, listen, you know what? We've made enough. And with you, there's like there's zero idea of a goal. It feels like I'm gonna call it degeneracy. Obviously, you wouldn't. It feels like this is what you love to do. It's not that you're doing like, hey, we're just trying to hit this lick and move on. It's like, hey, this is our lifestyle. This is what we were kind of like either hinting at or kind of headed towards. And me and Lena, we just love it here.
Okay, so imagine two different days for me. Sometimes I'll have a day where I got to film 2 interviews back to back. And, quite often these are interviews I'm like extremely excited to do, where it's people that I respect and I'm just dying to have a fucking conversation with. And there's all these questions. I'm sure you feel the same way when you do a piece of content with somebody, when you go in to interview Vlad, which I didn't actually get a chance to watch that one yet, but I watched like the first half of the Vic Mensa one today, which I guess actually if I were you, I probably wouldn't have been that excited for that one. But either way, like you're going in to have a conversation with somebody, you're super excited. Like in that moment, if I would do that shit for free. And yes, I'm going to make, however much money off it, but I would totally do that shit for free. Now, at the same time, when I go in to do porn, it's a different type of excitement, where it's like the same way that you probably feel when you're like driving not that you would do such a thing, but if you were driving to some chick's house at midnight to go have a wild ass threesome or whatever, it's like you're all geeked up, you're just like excited, like, oh my God, this is gonna be fucking tight. My boner's going in and out and and that's like exciting, but in a very different way. But would I hang it up intentionally? Hell no, because it's like I love doing the porn shit. Like as much as it's like, yeah, it would be more fun to do it off camera, but also that would be a very weird use of a Monday for me to like fuck 2 random girls in the middle of the day. Like doing it for money is just like, I don't know. It's like, it's the most natural thing in the world at this point. Like why the fuck would I want to like go hit the club and like, party and shit to fuck some girls, which, every guy that I know has a bunch of money. This is what they end up doing, is they end up going to the club and they end up fucking hella, random girls, and they spend money on them. They buy them shit, all this kind of stuff. For me, it's weird because I've cut myself off from that mentality of chasing pussy. I'm still fucking a bunch of random girls, but it's within this like very strict confines that also is very profitable. But honestly, like I'm not worried about like the post plug talk part of my life. Like if I hit 44 and it's just like, oh, all right, we're not going to do porn anymore. I mean, that sounds fine. Like, I don't think I'd be stressing like fucking a bunch of different chicks and shit.
I guess I ask you because, like, for example, I don't have kids, but like as time goes on, like even when I just got like some type of fame, and I was like, I realized the power in fame, and like you could DM a girl and she fucking sees that you're popular, and like she just acts abnormally. She's like, yo, I don't give a fuck if I'm like in Antarctica, I'm about to come fuck you, right?
You could DM a trans girl.
Well, that didn't happen, but so that whole phase, right, happens for a while, right? But eventually, like, how old are you now?
39, dude. I'm 40 in like a couple months.
So you're 40 now with a kid and a wife, and you're still like your Monday. The highlight of your Monday is like having these threesomes.
I mean, is it a highlight? I mean, the whole entirety of my existence feels like a fucking highlight because, all right, I was just thinking about, how it's like when you're in the middle of a moment or a movement, it's very, very hard for you to see where you're actually at. Like when I was in the middle of the SoundCloud rap wave, it's like I didn't really like perceive it as being that, and it didn't really have a name until it was kind of like over or almost over, and like even when I look back, like I didn't realize how much of a moment the AD T-Rail Lush whatever the fuck era of No Jumper was until it was kind of over, and then it was like, oh, okay, that was like a real period of my life. Like that's a fucking chapter right there. But I think I'm kind of lucky enough at this point because I'm old enough and I've like been through enough moments and been in enough moments that I can look at my life now and just be like, I could really like hang it up right now and be totally fine. I was in Hawaii a couple weeks ago, and I also was having a lot of those moments of like, damn, maybe you'd be happier if you just like chilled on the beach and like, went to this fucking food truck and got a burger and just like kicked it on some like super chill shit. But then at the same time, it's like I still feel like I'm in the middle of a moment. I still feel like chasing these interviews and doing this content and doing this porn shit and inventing the porn live stream space that we've now pioneered on onlyplugtalk.com, etc. It's like I'm still in the middle of this shit and it's still fun. And if it gets to the point where it's not fun, I could totally imagine myself taking a step back. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm having a great time in the middle of all of it. So I don't really see a reason why I'd want to fall back, even though it does kind of feel like an option. And if anything, I'm working my ass off like harder than I kind of ever worked in terms of the sheer amount of like shit that I just have booked on an average week.
So are you trying to convince me that you enjoyed the moment of Jason loved penetrating your wife, because I really look at it and say, Adam, you're too rich for this, man. And I know you're probably one of the, honestly, the humblest. Like, I feel like I have a great like gauge of where everybody is like financially, and you never lead with money, and I always know that. But you got it, and I've been telling everybody, I'm like, I don't care what dollar amount they say he was about to earn. I know he's making that, maybe in a longer period of time. He's making that from what he's doing, that he doesn't have to do that. So how do you process that? For me, I feel like, and this is my own theory, Lena was giving you some pressure because, like, yo, hey, listen, again, most of these female, like, porn stars or OnlyFans women, they kind of identify like they're feminists. So, like, she's probably hitting you with, like, all her fans are probably saying, hey, what about fairness? You let him fuck other bitches, he gotta let you fuck other women. And I think it probably got to you, and eventually, like, I don't know if y'all made a deal. I think y'all are really into more of a business than a marriage. Y'all probably made some type of deal, and you had to, like, you signed off on her taking a dick.
No. So, okay. The basic gist of that. Oh shit, he's still talking. What
the poker face you exhibited during the whole thing was fucking phenomenal. You even brought out a new character. I think you kind of went into a different arc, but there's zero way that when you went to sleep, like, again, I know it was very cheesy when I asked about love earlier, but like, love is associated with like that fucking feeling in your stomach that you can't even understand why it's happening, but that's just really what it is. When that nigga fucked your wife, bro, there's no way you tell me you slept like a baby that night. Ain't no way. I will never believe it.
I will say I always sleep very, very well, no matter what I'm going through. My sleep is one thing I always prioritize. But that being said, I think, you said I kept a good poker face, and I felt like I kept a good poker face for a lot of it. But this is the thing, is like, all right, she did that on a Sunday, and I knew it was going to happen for like a couple weeks or like a month, because we've been talking about it, and I made the decision to do it from a business standpoint, which was basically like, I believe that if you're going to go truly viral, there always has to be like a sacrifice of some sort. Like, for instance, I went extremely viral for having a guy run up in my fucking spot and point a gun in my face. That was like the most viral thing that had happened to me up to that point. And at least part of it was the fact that I fucking had my safety put in question. It wasn't like an intentional sacrifice on my part. And yes, it did make me look like vulnerable and like I was in a position where I could get fucked up. But it's kind of like part of going viral that somebody has to take an L. And I basically kind of like decided that in order to pull that storyline off, I had to be willing to take an L, at least in the public eye, to a certain extent. And I basically was just like, you know what? You can handle this. Be a tough guy. It's going to be worth it. That was my mentality going into it. Then she goes and does it. And I was a little bit surprised by the fact that it's interesting that you use the stomach metaphor there, or actually not a metaphor. We're like actually talking about how you feel in the pit of your stomach. But just knowing that it happened, it left me with like a queasiness that I was not expecting. So that was kind of surprising to me. But I had to go in and do a podcast the next day. That was Sunday that she did it. I go in and do the podcast Monday. Now, me and her talked for maybe an hour and a half before we went to bed after she did that scene, right? But so I go in and I'm talking to Destiny and Critmac on camera, and you can imagine, like, obviously the fact that I'm talking about it with Critmac is like the weirdest thing ever. Like, Destiny is a pretty good shoulder to not cry, but to, lean on in that moment. But Critmac is about the weirdest possible person you could confide in. But I decided to treat it kind of like I treat almost all of my content, which is that I try to, like, when we're doing podcasts like this, I'm trying to just be honest. I'm trying not to like have anything that I'm hiding, or, I try to just be like really upfront as much as possible. And I find that it's hard for me to be on camera when I'm not being honest. Like, it's kind of hard for me to like even get in the mood to get on camera when I know that there's big shit that I'm gonna have to be covering up. So as soon as I got on camera, I basically just started talking about it, and I told Critmac and Destiny. And I was a little bit too honest. I didn't have enough of a poker face where, like, I wish that I had been able to like 100% completely play the character of the guy who was 100% on board, because I feel mostly on board. Like, this is not something that I'm stressed about. And I had that realization when I was in one of these fucking orgies the other day, where, I'm fucking my girl and there's another guy fucking another girl right next to her. And I'm kind of thinking in the back of my head, like, how would you feel if she sucked his dick right now while you're fucking her? And because in the context of these,
How would you feel? Real talk.
how would I feel? I mean, it's always a little bit of a roll of the dice because you're kind of playing with your feelings there. You're playing with you're not 100% sure about how you're going to feel. She didn't do it in that case. She only did that Jason scene, but I don't think it would bother me because I'm fucking other girls in the context of this orgy while they're fucking other guys. Like I'm fucking this girl. I'm slamming her head down on this gigantic fucking black dick. I mean, I'm not.
My problem with you is this.
What?
And I think, I've loved the fact that despite many attempts to, I think No Jumper became what it is and you became who you are because there was a very severe attempt to cancel you. They were trying to ostracize you as one of those people like, hey, this is persona non grata right here. So I get it. But so to me, you're the epitome of woke or even cancel culture, right? Like, so when I hear you kind of like agree with these, like, well, I gotta be okay if she wanted to suck a dick during the orgy. Like, no,
it's not like, oh, I have to be okay with it because she deserves this or something. It's just like, I feel like I'm in the place with my relationship and our content that we could do that, and that's not going to change how I feel about her. I could say that the Jason Love thing, like, it's weird because I'll like post a photo with her and get a million fucking comments that are still talking about the Jason Love thing, and it's like, oh shit, like I haven't thought about that in weeks. Like that totally like vanished from my brain like a couple of days after it happened because that's just not really like a big deal from our perspective. The same way that she saw me getting smothered half to death by Juliana Cabrazia's gigantic fucking butt the other day, and she didn't have anything to say about that. It doesn't mean anything to her. The same way, I'm not gonna say it doesn't mean anything to me, but I think that I've like wrapped my head around the reality of her doing shit with other guys on camera enough that it's just not really challenging to me anymore.
Because if you really believe that, it wouldn't, like, the performer wouldn't matter if you really didn't care. And I know there's certain people just intuitively because that's the mother of your child, you would never want her to have sex with.
I learned that in the course of the Jason Love storyline that who it is matters like massively because of the fact that I am a public figure. And like, I don't really think he did anything like super malicious or like he was really like trying to be super disrespectful or whatever, but he definitely like said some shit that I wasn't comfortable with and just kind of treated it in a way that I wasn't super hyped on.
Wait, why are you mad at him? Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, with all due respect, a nigga nutting your wife, you can never talk shit to him. Like, there's nothing, anytime, like, if I'm him, I'd be just dropping screenshots like Dylan Dennis all day on you. Like, right. You couldn't say nothing.
And that it's understandable that that's like, well, he didn't do that, but he just kind of like talked about it in ways like, to me, there's a code in porn where we're all fucking each other on camera, and so therefore there are things that we just don't talk about. Like, for instance, I've seen a lot of male porn stars be unable to get a boner, and this is like mega embarrassing for them in that moment. And I've never came on camera and been like, holy shit, this guy couldn't get a boner, because it's just like, that's the codes of this shit. The same way that sometimes I'll fuck a girl on camera and I know her husband, and her husband's like a dude where I could theoretically go on the podcast the next day and be like, yo, you're not going to believe it. I fucked this girl yesterday and she's married to so-and-so. Because there are some of these porn star girls are like secretly married to dudes who, I'm not going to say they're like A-listers, but some of them are like relatively public people and shit. And I would just never do that. So that's why, I mean, this is all going to seem kind of small in comparison to what we have coming, because we have like a whole series that me and Lena are going to be dropping that's basically like us searching for the next guy. There's a little bit of a sneak preview right there for you. Yeah. We got a whole series that we're working on that is going to be fucking ridiculous.
That is crazy. But here's the thing though. And I completely get what you're saying, and I think what you're saying is completely valid, right? You guys are in the porn world. You guys can always be critical of each other or kind of take a little braggadocio like, yo, hey, I fucked your bitch. And that's just usually kind of frowned upon. I think why Jason Love even said anything is because, and I don't know if this is the common consensus among people that do adult entertainment, he was saying, and he was putting himself in your shoe, basically kind of like, if I had the empire that you got going on, if I had the money that you had going on without prior without prior like adult entertainment experience, I'm not letting my wife like if monetarily we don't need it, I'm not letting my wife get fucked.
No,
and I think that's what
I totally get that. But the problem with Jason Love is that, to his credit, large man, great build, large penis, not a visionary. I'm a visionary. I saw a plot line unfolding right in front of me at that moment, like something right there that we could just seize and take it and make something out of it. And honestly, like once we really got into the swing of things, I kind of felt like Blueface and Chrisean in a way, in the sense that like the same way that they have been able to have this incredibly messy, abusive relationship and it's created this storyline that people can't look away from. I feel like for that time period, me and Lena were basically doing the same thing, but instead of it being me knocking her dad out on camera, it was, oh, she's going to do a scene with another guy, and then we're going to talk about it on Twitter and make TikToks about it that go viral. And, you know, that kind of made me realize that, like, that is our thing that we can harness, is, like, being a freakier couple out in public than the average public couple. All we have to do is harness that viral energy surrounding that thing, and boom, it's a ticket to the fucking moon.
Okay, and one more question, and we can move on to some hip hop and media shit too. Sure. But I do want to ask, because I thought about this when I heard you actually admit it, because I was really trying to wrap my mind around it, right? But you had mentioned that pretty much when you had first met Lena, like you and somebody else ran a train on her. So it was like you were kind of open.
It wasn't a train. We just fucked her at the same time.
It's a train.
No, it's a train if you take turns.
It's a gangbang. It's a gangbang. You're right. And
I also, 2 is a threesome. 3 guys, I think, is more like a train or a gangbang.
With 2 niggas. Hell no.
Just to be technical.
But anyway, okay. So you were if you never, prior to all of this, now you have kids, marriage, if you never shared her with another man, or even like say the house phone situation, if it was a situation where you never knew anybody else that's ever been with her sexually, right? And you kind of felt like she was sexually exclusive to you, do you think you would have been open to this?
It might have been harder for me to like open my mind to it for sure, but the reality is that very early on in our relationship, like you said, me, her, and another dude who was a close friend of mine, we all ended up banging at the same time. And I thought it was hot. It was like a good memory from my perspective. And what I had to do, because listen, like we were running trains on girls and shit when I was young, when I was like high school, basically. When I was like 18 or 19, I remember like fucking a girl with 2 of the homies in the woods. And like, you know, this was just normal shit at that time. And I think that that's like the weird thing about it, is that I'm incentivized as a person who makes porn to be more open-minded than I might be otherwise. And that's why everybody kind of sees that logic playing out in my brain. And that's why people are always like, well, are you going to fuck a dude? Because they fucking do the math in their head and they're like, well, what's the next most extreme thing? Oh, it would be him actually fucking the dude. I'm not going to fuck a dude, just for the record, so everybody knows. But that's what people are always getting at. So it's like, for me, you know, doing the bi-weekly live streamed orgies and shit, it's like, well, this is not shit that I like saw myself doing with my life, but I'm incentivized to do it and I'm having a good time, so why not?
So the teaser you kind of like let the cat out of the bag with is like, you guys are going to be looking for other dudes to just fuck her solo, or y'all about to run a train on her type shit?
Nah, this is going to be like for the first Adam, Lena, and another guy threesome.
Why we call it threesome train?
It's not a train. It's like a turn-taking type thing. I'm picturing like all of the sexual positions that we have in mind and stuff once we do shoot this thing are not like train-oriented. What I am like okay, a good example is the double penetration thing. Dick in the ass, dick in the vagina. Did I ever see myself doing that? Would I ever do it? I don't know. Me as a non-on-camera person, for sure I would not be thinking about it. As a person who does porn, would I push myself to this limit that I would potentially do it? I don't know. Tune in next time to find out.
No, Adam, I ain't gonna lie. I do think like, and I ain't even trying to be sticking on that. I do think, I don't think you probably
on balls, balls touching balls, Ak.
You know, I definitely see you do like what I call that gay stuff. Like, I don't see you sucking a dick, but I can't really tell, because somebody said there's a video of you in an orgy. You're fucking a girl. Another nigga fucking a girl, and you're holding hands with the dude, and like it's like you're like y'all doing like a fusion dance, like you holding his hand, and like, bro, like, yo, Adam.
It was a high five. It's an Eiffel Tower. You never heard the Eiffel Tower? It's a famous sex position, and the guy is from France, and keep in mind, he suggested this to me on a live stream, so it's not like I could do it, like in that moment, if I had ducked the Eiffel Tower on live stream, that shit would have been so foul. I had to go for it.
What and again, you know, I'm trying to understand also the nature of your marriage as well. What about Lena is exclusive or has some sanctity with you? Like, you know, I used to know whores used to be like, they used to be like, oh yeah, oh, I know this one whore, she would be like, yo, she let anybody fuck the pussy, but she's like, anal is only for her husband. Like, you know, women usually feel like they have to make something special for their guy or their husband. But it looked like if you're down to have a train ran, a little threesome, whatever else you're down to do, it feels like, you know, like when it comes to sexual, you don't feel like anything special with her then, right?
Well, I mean,
you do because you had a kid with her. Something had to be special. You can't just think it's a fucking hole. Well, you're going in and out.
Emotionally, we're exclusive. And I mean, of course, there's all kinds of physical stuff that she wouldn't do with another guy that we do together. But like, I don't feel, well, I mean, she's never done anal with another guy. She's never, like, I mean, everything she did with another guy, you could see in the concept of that Jason Love thing. Huh?
She had to do none in her. That's 10 times worse. Yo, come on. Yo, what was that conversation like? You'll finally see the clip.
I gotta have an off-camera conversation with you about that. I gotta have an off-camera conversation with you about this that scene.
Okay, all right, so that's a really okay. So you care a little bit. Yo, Adam, a lot of times when I talk to you, I'm always trying to use the litmus test of where does this guy care? You know, I always bring up this conversation when I went to the last time I went to No German, which I felt like was a long time ago. Yo, I went in there and I remember just seeing a bunch of Crips and I'm like, listen, hey, I came in for content. I'm on fire. So I went crazy and I remember you had texted me like either day after and we had a conversation. And I like the fact that you text me and I think I told you. But this is how I internalized. I'm like, I like the fact that Adam was like, hey, listen, I do have a limit. I have a boundary because sometimes you come across like nothing fucking matters, brother. And I think that's where like people are usually thinking you might be a psychopath. You're definitely a sex addict, but also like, you know,
what the fuck do I do that makes you think I'm a sex addict? Like my entire sex life that is outside of me just sleeping with my girl at home is documented on camera and it's totally fucking normal. And I don't have any off camera crazy sexual experiences. Huh?
You have an insatiable appetite for sex that includes going above and beyond, trying to find some next level of kinkiness to try to. It's like a high. It's like a crack rock.
No, but that's business stuff. That doesn't have anything to do with like us just like yearning to like do this kind of stuff. It's content.
You literally said you were like you got off at the fact. Or you were turned on by the fact another man fucked your wife. That's kinkiness, brother.
That was an unintended consequence that I ended up kind of like feeling the content more than I thought I would. But I knew that was gonna happen. Like I wasn't surprised by that at all.
All right.
Hey, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Shay Glizzy, she's a real live wire, isn't she?
Yeah.
But did she fuck Blueface? You're categorically denying this because I just want to make it clear. When Wack brought that to the table on the podcast,
I called him before you know.
I did not believe him. I didn't believe him because it just didn't seem like Wack has done this before because he did this about Lush and AD. He said that Lush fucked AD's girl or some shit, which was like immediately everybody knew it wasn't true, but Wack just goes on Clubhouse or some shit and says it. So I wasn't that surprised. There is a precedent for this.
Okay. So first of all, I felt I'll tell you two things. I said Adam is a slick motherfucker. He recorded this on Thursday. He knew Wack said this, so you dropped the clip today. By the way, I knew to get on live stream before because I wanted to surveil the landscape. I blacked on Wack. I blacked on Wack, you, Blueface, anybody in the mix.
I heard you talking about Blueface. I didn't hear anything about me.
Yeah, Wack calls up in the mix, and Wack says, "Wack, you bit the bait. I made a bet with Adam that I could get you to promote the shit, basically by talking shit." He's probably just full of shit, right?
He is 100% full of shit. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, but he basically was just like, yo, yeah, like, you know, and I know Wack, but I was just like, yo, Wack, I know you're the guy who say certain shit for content, but if it usually involves me, you would hit me. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, no, that didn't happen. And by the way, for the record, a woman I'm dealing with fucks any rapper. You know what I mean? Especially after, like, honestly, I'm not even attracted to women who fuck rappers in the past.
But if you found out that a girl you were dating had been with another guy who was in the public eye, maybe not even a rapper, what if it was fucking Leonardo DiCaprio? How would you feel about that?
It's over. Like I'm gonna be
even
honest,
if it was just in the past, who gives a shit?
No, not in the past because I should have known going in.
Oh yeah, but do you ask her that at a certain point? You're like, listen, if you fucked anybody famous, because I did that to Lena in 2016. I was like, listen, I need to know anybody you fucked that in any way overlaps with my social circle, because not that it really matters, but because I need to know. I don't want to be blindsided by something.
Yeah, no. Well, for me, I'm a little bit more kind of. And it's probably like also a race thing. It's probably a race thing and a cultural thing. Like, honestly, I've tolerated way more from a woman. Like, I'll tolerate bullshit. I'll tolerate a chick saying random bullshit lies about me. But one thing I will never tolerate, once another dick enters you, they ain't got nothing for us to talk about. It's over. It is over. I can't even look at you the same. We could fuck, but I can't claim you as mine. Like, there's a sanctity of what I believe a girlfriend or a significant other holds, and that completely breaks it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's honestly more about the trust that would be broken if I, like, hypothetically, let's say I find out that a couple years into our relationship, Lena just met some dude at a party or whatever and just ended up fucking him and just never told me. It's not really about the sex part so much. It's about the trust. It's about the fact that you did this, you sat on it for all those years and didn't like feel like you had to tell me at some point.
It's all about the sex for me.
Well, the sex matters, but it's more about the trust.
Yo, Platis, all right, let's go back. When I was with Angelica probably broke shit. Like, she caused probably like tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage. You know, Angelica was wilding out.
To me, that's almost enough for me to walk away too. Like, I don't know if I could really tolerate it after that.
The moment that I felt that she was even whatever, it was just already over. The moment I felt like she was even entertaining somebody, I was already moving on at that point. You get what I mean? Mm-hmm. But some people, like, it might be different. Like, some people might be like, yo, you break my shit, it's over. For me, like, obviously that's some shit it should be over for, but I'm just trying to tell you the levels of, if a dick go inside you, in terms of like a woman that I'm dealing with, it is over. I don't care what it is. Like, it ain't about no trust. I don't care if you told me. I don't care if you didn't tell me. If I find out, it is over. I'm emotionally numb after that point.
But to me, if they cheated and told you immediately, that would be like way more forgivable than cheating and keeping it a secret for a long period of time. Now, I kind of agree that as soon as they like break the level of trust, to me, it's not about the dick, because the Jason Love thing doesn't bother me at all. But if she were to just fuck a random dude and then confess it to me at some point in the future, that's super consequential, because now I don't feel like I can trust you. And like my girl, like a couple weekends ago, she like, you know, went out to some bars and clubs with her friends or whatever. And one of the clubs or bars that they went to ended up being like a younger crowd, like people in college type age. And she said that she had like a fucking line of dudes just trying to talk to her. And like some of it was on some fan shit. Some of it was on some like, oh, like actually trying to holler at her. And that was like, you know, I didn't feel any level of guilt or not guilt, but like any level of jealousy at all when she was telling me about that afterwards, because I've been with her for fucking 7 years and I know that I can trust her. But as soon as you fuck that trust up one time, then every single time you go out and you do anything, go in a club, bar, whatever with your girlfriends, I'm going to be sitting there like stewing, like having such a hard time dealing with it. So to me, like that is probably what put me in the headspace that even allowed me to take on the gigantic dick of Jason Love entering my wife, is because of the fact that I had such a crazy degree of trust with her that I didn't feel threatened by that. And I feel like that's pretty rare, that the average, like, I know a ton of people in relationships where the girl can't go to the fucking 7-Eleven with a tube top on, and the guy, if he glances at another girl, it's a huge argument and shit like that. Like, I am so far away from that's probably what put me in the headspace that made it seem okay to enter into that.
Yeah, but it's different though, Adam. I'm gonna tell you why, right? For example, right? I like women, and I like women that will allow me to have as many threesomes. I kind of was like a bisexual woman, to be honest. Now, initially at first, I would be with, like, I was with a girl, and she was like, we should try it one time. And that one time is like, yeah, we should try this about every month. And that every month shit to be like, oh, we can find a bitch every week. To the point that it was like, yo, I think we could just do this all the time. Your wife is now, she's ate the forbidden fruit. She's taken the 15-inch python, and now she might just be like, hey, listen, come on, yo, Adam, like, yo, like, hey, she might disguise the content, but you have zero worry that, again, because you enjoy, like, again, you say you enjoy these scenes. It's not like you're just like, okay, I have to fuck some bitches. You're like, oh shit, I'm about to fuck a new bitch. It's happy. No, like, you're happy.
What we do sexually on camera is still ultimately like a decision that takes place between us, because you'll notice that she hasn't shot anything with any other dudes since she did the Jason Love thing, right? Now, if you think about it from her mentality, fucking another dude, not a bad thing, and gets to make a shitload of money off it, she probably would have preferred to go and do that, right? From my perspective, it's like, listen, even though I let you do the Jason Love thing, this is not going to be like a consistent all the time thing. I'm down to create moments, culturally, virally, etc., around us doing this. But from my perspective, like, if you just go and shoot another scene with another guy right away, that takes away the thing that made it special or made it interesting to people. And now this is just part of your regular fucking job. And I'm not really trying to like live that life of just like having you just be a regular fucking porn star. That's not really what I'm interested in. And that is something that we had a conversation about. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's my call, the same way that her doing the first scene in the first place was her call too, or it was my call as well. It's like I had to be making that decision in order for that to happen. It wouldn't have happened if I didn't agree to it.
You said that, but a lot of these woke motherfuckers, I seen them on Twitter, they were like, what you mean you're allowing her? So you do know, like, this is a slippery slope where people are going to be like, hey, listen, like, you've opened up Pandora's box. It's really not up to what you will allow. It's that she has her own autonomy, just like you kind of have your own autonomy, and she should be able to fuck whoever she want to fuck. What's the problem?
No, that would be nice. But in the reality, we live in the real world where, it's a conversation that we're having consistently. And like, even with this new content series that we're doing right now, it's like, it's going to be interesting and it's going to be exciting because people haven't seen her do anything with another guy since the Jason Love thing. So that's where I'm going with that. Now, to play the Uno reverse card on you, I just want to say that, I mean, I'm sure she's a lovely girl and everything, but I feel like I agree with what I heard AD saying to you on the clip that I saw from Community the other day, which is like, it feels like you're enduring a level of disrespect and abuse from this girl that I've never seen you take from a girl before. And it stands out to me as like it putting you in a dangerous position that I haven't really seen you allow yourself to be put into. And I don't know how much truth there is to it or whatever, but the shit that she said about, I got handcuffed or like the door kicked in, whatever, all this kind of shit, that stood out to me as like, bro, this is dangerous. This is like actually, and I guess you have some kind of like connection with her because of the fucking, the fact that you guys, you almost had the home invasion with her and everything like that. But like, I feel like she's kind of like crossed some lines that as a public figure, you're not supposed to let your girl cross. Like me and Lena, as much as we've fought privately or whatever, that stuff has never made it to the front page. Like we just never kind of make that content, or like tiny little bits of it have maybe snuck through. But I'm interested to know how you feel about that, because to me, this is not the Akademiks that I'm used to. Usually I've seen you move in a very, very calculated way. And now it kind of feels like you're throwing caution to the wind. And I've seen some people propose this and it kind of makes sense to me, which is the idea of like, what does she have on him? Because maybe that's why you're dealing with some of the disrespect and her talking through the Dave Chappelle comedy special that I don't expect you to be doing normally.
Well, I mean, I'll start with the Dave Chappelle thing, then I'll go to the other comments you said. With the Dave Chappelle thing, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, clearly, I wanted to just grab the phone, but I'm gonna be honest. We're in public. I'm a black man. I'm not grabbing nothing from no woman. I don't want nobody to say I did nothing. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like we live in this real pussy world right now, where it's like, yo, women do whatever they want. If there's consequences, they face it. You know what people told me, that thing that happened in Miami? I remember even talking to Vlad, Vlad. And I was talking about what happened at Komodo. And a lot of people told me, they said, hey, listen, unfortunately, the only right thing you should have done, because people thought I was fighting at first. I was like, no, I was breaking up a fight that involved someone I was with. They said, listen, you're the famous one. Unfortunately, in that situation, you have to back the fuck up and let it be what it is. And I felt conflicted because I said, damn, you don't want to be the bitch who just let your chick just whatever. But now you're in the middle of it. It's now on TMZ. So that's another reason why, like, even when it came to Dave Chappelle shit, I'm like, listen, I'm not going to do a motherfucking thing that says, oh, Axe snatches the phone, he shouts. I'm not doing nothing. So I'm just chilling out. Regardless, back to the other comments, like, yeah, me and 80, we had a really good conversation about it. Salute to 80, but I might ask you about that in a little bit. But no, he was right in a lot of things, you know? I told him the same thing that I'm going to tell you. There is parts of it, and I'm human. Like, you know, I've never been someone who, like, again, as maybe as stoic or whatever y'all see me in terms of, like, me doing content. I've always had interpersonal relationships, and especially with women. And in those relationships, you know, it is a give and take a little bit, right? So number one, and I told him this, I said, first of all, I feel that there's a little bit of trauma bonding, honestly. In a situation where my life was actually threatened, this person actually was very instrumental in making sure I was okay. That probably also gives me okay, yeah, she fucked up, but forgive. But also, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm somebody who's just not perfect. Like, I've been mad on faithful. You get what I mean? And when most things kind of happen, even if it makes it to the public or not, it's because I'm the person, like, you know, obviously I'm not waiting both to be the same, but I've cheated or I've done whatever. I've been with like 5, you know what I mean? Whatever the case is. So when cooler heads do prevail or whatever, it makes it more able where I'm like, you know what? All right, fuck it. I did bad. You did bad. Let's get back, or let's try, or let's not go to the extreme like that. It's clearly not healthy, though. I'll be honest with you. And at times, you know, I guess the last thing I'll say about it, like, most of the time, and I don't, you know, obviously I'm younger than you, but I don't know if you've ever been there because you're like emotionless. So it's like difficult to probably like reason with you when it comes to this, especially when you're with someone. Like, when I met her, she was 22. She's 24 now. You're also hoping for that change. And every time there's a conversation, it's like, hey, listen, you know, I'm telling them, like, yo, listen, we're in Miami. All these motherfuckers, if I even slip, they got a camera out. Like, she don't even know what that is until it happens. And she's like, what? We're on TMZ? So I'm dealing with someone who's kind of learning, and every time I'm expecting or assuming that they're gonna learn or they're gonna not repeat the same mistakes. And sometimes, I ain't gonna lie, that's where it gets kind of, yo, you're making the same mistakes consistently. That becomes a problem, and that's why at least us having these conversations.
This is my thing: is that I think you have basically what I'm going to describe, for lack of a better term, but as like a ratchet fetish. And I discovered this because I remember years ago.
You say it's on Vlad, nigga.
Did I say that? All right. Well,
you said it's on Vlad. I know you're about to go ahead.
I mean, okay. There was a long time ago, we were on stream, and I never see people talk about that old stream. I bet there's some gems in there. But that stream, you said that you would search up Chirac thotties or I don't know, like ghetto hoe or some shit on fucking Pornhub to find something to jerk off to, which I've never heard of anything like that before, which that really made me like, oh, fuck, like Akademiks, like the way that he feels about like a Lil Reese and a Lil J and et cetera, pause. And like, you know, the fact that you were making all this content about these guys at a time where most of us were not really paying that much attention to the savagery of the Chirac scene or whatever, that carries through to your sex life to a certain extent. Because if we want to talk about who is the Lil Reese, the Grim Reaper of being a whore, shout out to Selena Powell. I know you didn't like date her per se or whatever, but there was like some kind of connection that you guys seem to have that kind of went beyond the Waka Flockas and the other dudes who like kind of put dick up in her real quick and then we're out of there. Do you admit and agree to the fact that there is some degree with which you need the danger and the excitement that only a hood rat can bring to the table. And I don't even know if she's a hood rat per se, but she's clearly kind of a live wire. I'm surprised you never dated Asian Doll.
Hell no.
Nah, you would fuck with her. I think that would be a match made in heaven.
And by the way, you see, when it comes to these topics, I definitely try to have reasonable conversation. I think I'm also very self-aware. I would say no in how you're surmising it, but there is something to that, right? What I would probably say is that, like, I felt like if I thought about my dating history, right? I had very regular, non-turbulent relationships.
Okay.
Until I met Angelica. And I don't know what it is. And well, I've actually internalized, put it like this. I was a decent to probably good boyfriend until I got fame. I've cheated on every bitch since. like what I mean is like you don't even want to know the amounts. So I also like, you know, I'm not struggling, but I've been putting, like, just being honest and being self-aware and also accountable. Sometimes I meet, like, I thought Angelica was a sweet girl at first, and then she gets cheated on like 80 times by like 80 bitches, and then she's finding out constantly. Then she's like, yo, I love you, I can't do anything, but I'm mad. Now she's like, I'm about to just break some shit. And
Lil Tracy, shout out to Lil Tracy.
Hold on, and you kind of, okay, this nigga didn't happen, but anyway. But
it didn't? I thought it did. My bad.
But at some point, you kind of then put yourself in this cycle, which is almost like a toxic cyclone type of way, in terms of you become complicit, and this is almost, it becomes what you're also perpetuating as well, right? It's not that you're just a victim, right? Because that seems to be, there's a common theme with all the women I've dated, but there's also self-accountability too. Like, my nigga, if maybe you just keep your dick to one pussy, and when you say you're in a relationship, maybe they won't be going crazy. Because truth be told, that's usually what happens, right?
Yeah.
Like Angelica first broke some shit when she thought that I fucked Selena. Then she broke some shit when she found like 18 sex tapes on my fucking computer. Like, they were just there. Oh, she was like, who are these bitches, right? Like, she was going crazy. So again, you know, and I remember even talking to her, and I hate to, you know, I don't want people to hit her, and, you know, she's on to her new situations. But she even told me, she was like, yeah, I kind of like, it was just like, I blacked out. Like, I saw the guy who I love fucking like 20 bitches. Like, what the fuck you want me to do? So again, I do think there's a part of me, like, you don't cheat on Lena, do you? I guarantee if you cheat on Lena, there'll be a lot of shit going on. But you don't need to cheat on her because you fucking bitches on camera, so that's good.
Yeah, and I also just like, I mean, me more than most people, I've learned how fucking messy it gets when you're, you know, dealing with chicks, like when you're cheating or doing anything scandalous with chicks. Like, you just can't trust them. I had a girl lie, like a girl came from like basically like partied with me and Lena, and then we all went back and fucked, and then she ended up making up some shit and saying that she was like too loaded or whatever. She was totally fucking normal, and she ends up lying about that shit. So even right there, that was like the biggest eye-opening experience ever, to be like, oh, you are a fucking idiot if you do any dumb shit at all at this point in your life. So I mean, that even having something like that happen, and like that, I could never think about just fucking some random girl the same after having an experience like that.
So I can say this, and hopefully this will answer all the questions with that, right? Because I think I've been pretty transparent about everything else. So, but I will say this. I am at the point, right, where it's just like, you know, I think when I meet women now, and even my last situation, because of who I am, they now use social media and they use the fame as leverage. Yeah. Okay, I can't get you to act like I want. I'm about to say something online. You're gonna have to deal with everybody talking about something, even if it's not true. So now it's almost like I'm becoming weary of this, because like it's put me to answer unnecessary questions that either ain't true or is really derogatory or some other shit. And then now it's like, at first I was having fun. Now it's like, yo, I don't think I'm having fun no more. You know what I mean? At first it was like, all right, maybe this is, but now it's like, you know what? Maybe I should just, I gotta put my little banner in the rafters. I did enough. Akademiks did his thing, and I'm about to be like Charlotte, man. Charlotte used to cheat on his wife all the time. I ain't trying to be like some Kobe shit, but like he's the same. Maybe I'll finally become faithful to some shit. Maybe that'll help.
I mean, see, that's the thing is that your life will get so much better in so many ways once you get into a relationship. And because, like, I remember, you know, the author Ryan Holiday, he had this conversation with me like right before I got into my relationship with Lena, where he basically told me like, get in a relationship, get serious, settle down, and have kids. It'll be the best thing that ever happens to you business wise. I'm thinking in my head, what the fuck are you talking about? If I'm having to balance my time with a relationship and kids, how the fuck is that going to make my business better? But I can honestly say that I think that that's happened. And if you even want to just talk about like a PR side of things, I think, you know, look at what we see happen to rappers when they get into public relationships with high value females, especially if they can avoid the love and hip hop angle, which I think especially with the whole Blueface thing, we've really kind of seen, or at least like been reminded of the fact that this is just like very rarely good for men. But your fan base would open up so much. Like I like the point that you made the other day that your Instagram has 5 million subscriber or followers and Shade Room has 25 million. It's like that black woman celebrity gossip category is fucking gigantic. And as a rapper, your entire music career history is fucking irrelevant until you start dating a famous black woman that they love, and then boom, you're in that conversation. The problem is that, I mean, you see it with DDG, is that like, you're gonna be the villain unless you are fucking Michael B. Jordan or like one of these very few rare guys that gets to be in the good guy category. And I think he only gets to be in the good guy category because he's basically absent from all public appearances, and like you only get to see him when he's like on camera in a movie or whatever. But if you could insert yourself into that world, it just automatically makes you a million times bigger. Now, you're going to be the villain either way, and especially you being you, every single fucking bad thing that you ever said is just going to get recycled for content as soon as, like, if you dated Chloe Bailey, well, no offense to DDG, I don't want to like do that, but like if you dated somebody like her, what happens in the next 12 months of your career? Because it's going to make you way bigger, way more talked about, but also probably maybe kind of hurts you in the long run, right?
Yeah, like something like that, right, will probably almost like neuter me from like the edginess that kind of has built my audience, even though it exposed me to this whole other audience. Right. And like, for example, like I was even saying about Chrisean Rock. Chrisean Rock, which I don't know if people really agree with me, but right now Chrisean Rock on a social media clout level is more lit than Blueface has ever been, without a song. Right now, like she goes live, 100,000 people is watching her. Why? They want to just get the glimpse of her being motherly to a baby, which is such like it's like such a random but just natural act. It's not even something that requires skill. There's no jokes being told. There's no rapping being done. And then you kind of look at that. That's why I think Blueface is a little salty. I'd be salty too. I built you up, and now they just love you for being you. I need to do boxing, rap the best. I need to do all these great things just to get an ounce of the love that you're getting by just breathing. Right. Which is crazy.
But okay, if he makes Jaden Alexis as big as Chrisean Rock, or even in that fucking area, doesn't that make him like one of the goats of this shit? Like he's Puffy all of a sudden if he can fucking do that. I'm not saying that's likely.
He's raging.
Yeah, but I mean, he's like an unbelievable legend if he actually makes her pop off. And I mean, she's just like a participant in this reality show that is his life, I guess. But I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah, do you think he should have like been on the hunt for somebody maybe a little bit more explosive to turn into his next pet project?
See, and this is why I kind of came back to the side of liking Blueface and what he's doing. I think he's just doing natural shit. Like I don't think he's intentionally doing shit. He has a particular lifestyle, and he's just trying to put the business in accordance with whatever he likes to do. Right. He likes fucking a bunch of bitches. Okay, let's make the business around that. He likes it. So I'm not mad at that, but yeah, just to wrap this up, and I do want to get to, let's get some media shit. I want to ask you about AD and all those guys as well.
Okay.
But as far as my personal life goes, I'll agree with you. And I heard you say that. I didn't think it was hate at all. I actually thought it was a good point. And by the way, AD brought up a good point. I am like these days, I am very weary, and it's almost like I'm kind of a little bit fed up with especially some of the things in terms of personal life go into public shit, and then it's just like, I hate when people start leveraging the fact that you are around me publicly. Like that's like, I don't know if you've ever been like that with people before, but anytime. Okay, so for example, if you're living in my house or you're around me and you've seen me in either unflattering ways, or you've heard me say things that maybe I was probably trying to keep close to the chest, or if you've seen anything or whatever, or just that people know you're there, so anything you say they'll believe. If you weaponize that, it's like, you know, I don't know, like, I think the last couple relationships I've been in, it was kind of like, all right, I'm tolerating it, kind of. Also, there's highs and lows. Now it's kind of getting like stale. I'm gonna be honest. It's like, all right, if this is gonna go down and I'm not getting a Zeus check, I need to cut this shit off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that you would almost be better off at this point just going full in that direction, because right now you're doing like well, but at the same time, I don't feel like people have really jumped on any of the shit with this girl. Like, I'm not seeing it in the media that crazy and shit. And part of that is the fact that they don't feel like they know her. If they felt like they really knew her, i.e. from you doing content or being on a Zeus show with her, then all of a sudden that would change. And that's when you'd really be fucked, brother.
Yeah, well, that's the difference. And also, I say to women around me, I'm like, listen, I have a 95% male audience.
Yeah,
you're never gonna get my male audience to be like, oh, they love you. Now it's different. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, we love you now. No, it's different if, like, you know, when you're on a reality show, you get that female audience, and now they're like, fuck him, we're team you. Right. That's completely different. But also, that makes me never want to do reality TV. You get what I mean? Because once you do that, you almost kind of create the beast that eventually tries to eat you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's what happened to Blueface.
Yeah.
So even now, I usually. Like, I'll tell whoever around me, I'm like, okay, I get it. You just put up some bullshit that's not true, and cool. I might have to cuss two niggas out online, but we're just gonna keep going on. And also, like, for the most part, like, some of those things, I realize it gains more legs when I address it.
But this is my thing, is that I have an irrational belief and willingness to like, I'm rooting for Blueface. I'm kind of getting on my Dejan Paul report card type shit, where like this dude Dejan, who does the rap report card, and he is on No Jumper sometimes and stuff. He's like part of the news crew a couple of times a week. He cares about seeing LA rappers win to such an extent that I'm kind of not used to, because like, I'm from New Hampshire, lived in New York for 7 years, then I moved to LA, and it's like, I love New York rap, I love LA rap to a certain extent, but I never really was like rooting for a certain city to win. But when I look at Blueface, it's like, we can't have YG be the only like fly gang member rapper representing the West Coast. Now, granted, YG does an amazing job of it, but when there's only one of them, it kind of makes it seem like too much of an anomaly. And it's like, we need Blueface to prove that you can like come up out of the trenches of LA and still be a fly ass adult male doing things. And I don't know, like, in that regard, it's just like, I want to see him win, and I want him to maybe, like, I don't know, I just don't know if the Jaden Alexis move is the move. Like, I feel like if he can do that and it's convenient because she is his first baby mama, dope. But I also feel like it would almost be easier for him to just start from scratch.
No, he's gonna get back with his baby mama. Like, she has the cloud. She has the cloud, baby. He's gonna work. Hey, by the way, you preemptively jumped out the window and almost like fucking announced something which I later announced, that my podcast is transitioning from Spotify. I was in you announced it during the week that we were actually having conversations with them about two things: whether we're gonna continue on for either like a year more, or we were going to transition out, and what that would look like. Right. And, you know, my agent and my lawyer has been fighting for, like, you know, we're getting actually everything back, so all the assets. So, you know, for anyone who thought I never owned the podcast, everything's coming back to me.
But they got rid of almost everybody, right?
Say again?
They got rid of like the vast majority of the people that were doing exclusive podcasts, right?
Yes. They've been cleaning the house, honestly. So it's like, if you ask me, I think this year, about 85% of their original content is going to be just either weeded out. And if you ask me about probably next year, we might only see like Rogan over there still in, just because Rogan is that guy, and you just have to acknowledge it. You know what I mean?
But this reminds me a lot of the whole like original streaming wars, where you remember like Apple Music was paying for like what Chance the Rapper, or who else had exclusives? I can't even fucking remember. But Tidal had a few of them. It's like it's almost the same thing, where you see the value of a podcast host being temporarily artificially inflated by all these big ass corporations trying to get involved in a hot marketplace like podcasting. And that was always kind of weird for me to witness, because I'm over here homegrown just doing shit that is like self-owned, and yeah, we have sponsors and shit like that, but it's like I'm building everything without any kind of corporate partners. And to see, you know, all and like I'm sure you see it too, where you have all these podcasts that, you know, the Spotify playlist podcasts and shit that are kind of popping up out of the middle of nowhere, and the economics on these podcasts that are being built by some of these streaming platforms and shit just makes no fucking sense. They're paying people way too much money. These podcasts are not getting fucking views, and you know, you realize that that's artificially inflated.
Every industry though. That's every industry. Yeah, so it's like this. And this is why, like, even for example now, and I'll be like pretty transparent too, right? Like I have a contract now to, like, first of all, everything that's happened in the podcast market, I think it's ending now, right? So like, for example, if you want to know when that era started, Joe Budden was the start. I think I'm the end, right? So we're kind of both, we're one half of that era. Obviously, you're gonna have the people like Joe Rogan, they might transcend, but that's Joe Rogan. But everybody else, you know, it was probably beneficial for you. Like, for example, for me, like, and I'll be very honest and upfront, I never did a podcast, right? I'm leaving Everyday Struggle, right? They're offering millions. Hey, we know because you have the brand, you have the facial recognition, you have the fucking, I don't even know if I'm a household name, but whatever metrics they were looking at, hey, and I believe they tried to get Charlemagne before, so they had offered Charlemagne a bag. Like, he turned it down. He said with iHeart. So they couldn't get Joe, they couldn't get Charlemagne, they offered me. Cool. We worked some shit out. It ended up turning into, there was like a whole bit in where I could probably say now, Apple and Spotify were going back and forth at it. At first, they didn't want to give me ownership, and I was like, yo, salute to my man Larry Jackson over Apple. It was like, yo, you know, Apple actually offered us like $1 million more like per year. And we're just like, yo, we're about to go there. Spotify comes back with pretty much all the terms we want. We agree. I'm like, yo,
Apple doesn't even have exclusive podcasts, do they?
That's the funny part about it. At the time, Larry Jackson was in the system of Apple. This is before Jimmy Iovine is officially out of there. He was about to get his own. Remember, Larry Jackson's the reason why exclusive rappers were doing exclusive deals. Period. He brought exclusives. That's why Lucian Grange, the guy who runs, I don't know if you know music business, right? Lucian Grange, the guy who runs the whole Universal, right. When he seen what Larry Jackson did with Drake, where Drake's album was out for a week on like Apple, he said, fuck this. We're not doing this anymore. But the guy who single-handedly did it, which by the way, he's a genius. So salute to Larry Jackson. He's also the guy who brought, at least when Versus was on Apple, he did the Gucci Man and Jeezy thing where Gucci was like, he's getting $1 million. So this guy's like a power player. At the time, he was having a situation kind of brewing where they're about to just kind of give him autonomy. Like, hey, listen, you could do these shows for Apple Plus, right? So in reality, back then, there was a conversation to be had about me and Joe even reuniting on Apple, but also me getting my podcast on Apple. So it's going to be a huge deal, right? I'm kind of waiting for it. Me and Joe were kind of communicating a little bit. By the way, this is the year I got the podcast. All of a sudden, Spotify is in the running. Like, they're fucking with me. And by the way, to keep it real, I wanted to be a Spotify. Because my agents, they were talking me, like, they wanted me to be an Apple, you know, and no disrespect, I'm not, like, just spewing too much business because I would love to work with either or later. But eventually, it came down to, you know, if I had signed to Apple, like, this was the major thing for me. If I had signed to Apple, I couldn't start till, like, the year after. So I would have to sit on the shelf. And for me, you know, I cared about the optics. I'm like, I'm leaving Everyday Struggle. Yes, I'm going to go back to doing what I'm normally doing. But if people just see Act looking like he's stagnated, that's not good. If I hit the Spotify joint right now, we lit, right? We go to Spotify, and we had a beautiful 2 years over there. And yeah, now it's like they're just in the business model of being done with those deals. What's happening there is happening now in streaming. So now I have a Rumble deal. And shit, even though I'm on Twitch and YouTube, I can say this too. I'm very upfront. By the way, for everybody who's watching, the reason why I'm upfront because I do consider myself just like Adam is, just like Joe is, just like Charlamagne is. We're leaders in the space, and I try to be upfront with my business, hoping that it could let you know where the market is going. Because some of y'all dream and like work towards like either these bigger bags or want to know what's the best way to kind of make a career out of this, and it moves quickly. Like for example, right now, all these companies, they're offering, at least for now, for streaming. So I picked up a streaming deal. Kai Snat did, Aiden did, all these people did. Now, let's be very clear. In 2 years, that's done. I do not think, I think I'm gonna get paid this year, next year, and after that, they're gonna be like, we built our audience. We'll give you a scaled down version or something of the sort. That's just the reality of it, right? And for me, I just try to, I think me and you, we have different business models in the sense your shit is just all homegrown, get it out the mud, because I don't know if these companies don't holler at you or maybe they do, but they don't offer whatever you need. But for me, it's like, I always get to do both, right? Like, for example, I'm not signing a contract that I cancel Twitch. I'm not signing, I don't care what contract. I'm not going to sign a contract, like, let's say it's going to be for a show if I can't do my podcast and Twitch. So for me, it's just a supplemental thing. So for me, it's like, hey, if you're bringing millions of dollars to the table, right? Like this contract with Rumble, salute to Rumble, my man Chris over there. I'm still allowed to stream on these other platforms partially, right? Like Kick, I could have went to Kick, but they're going to be like, you got to leave Twitch. You can't be on YouTube. Makes sense to be over here. You know what I mean? So it's really all business, but I do know that this is going to end, right? 2 years, like they're not going to keep paying this indefinitely. And that's kind of where we are, just like business wise. I think I try to educate the audience with it, but it's hard for sometimes people to understand if they're not in these rooms or in these conversations yet.
Well, you know what it is? It's like what happened in golf, where you know about like the PGA and Live. Yeah. You ever read about that shit? It's like Live comes in and they, are owned by Saudi Arabia. They have infinite money, and they say, hey, golfers, we're going to guarantee you a shitload of money, because normally these golfers, they can make a shitload of money, but it's all based on them winning tournaments. And it's like, there's hundreds of dudes in each tournament. So it might be like $10 million if you win a tournament, but you're like, have like a 1 in 500 chance of winning. So then Live comes in and they say, hey, we have infinite money, which basically Stake, aka Kick, has infinite money. They say, okay, we're going to pay everybody a shitload of money, to the point where even people who have a principled stance against working with a company that's basically, operating out of Saudi funds has to basically go do it. And then at some point, the PGA just relents and says, okay, we're so scared of how deep your pockets are that we're going to just merge with you, and that we're just going to be one league. And it's pretty fucking crazy, because you could imagine that kind of happening within like any other sport. Like, what the fuck is to stop Saudi Arabia from coming to the NBA and saying the same fucking thing? I don't know that the NBA players are unhappy enough with their deals or whatever that they would want to do such a thing, but you could imagine it. And yeah, I didn't even think about like how temporary this whole like getting paid to stream wave is, but that's definitely probably true. I haven't actually heard from any of the companies in terms of making us offers or whatever, but
every number you hear from, I don't want to mention any particular person's contract. The max is 2 years, max.
Right.
And most people are usually on a 1, maybe 2, because again, they're just trying to buy market share. Like it's the same with exclusive podcasts. Spotify wanted to be that was their only goal. We want to be the #1 place where podcast is consumed. Mm-hmm. They did that over the time that they spent a lot of money. Now that they're #1, now they're like, okay, we're going to chill back and now focus on certain different things. Also, we stopped spending so much money. Our stock price or our quarterly reports look a little bit better because we're not losing or hemorrhaging money. Now we're making more and we got market share. So shit's looking, it's all business. I mean, you understand business, so it works.
No, yeah, I mean, it's the same logic by which, somebody like Vlad is telling me how much he's paid for certain interviews, but some of those interviews are loss leaders where, like, he might, there's certain artists that I see, I don't even ask him, but I'm just like, I bet he had to pay that guy, 10 grand or who knows how much, maybe even double that or triple that or whatever. And maybe that makes it so it's hard for him to turn a profit on that one individual interview. But if it normalizes his platform and, especially with like, I feel like he started to really pay for interviews around the same time that all those dudes tried to leave and tried to take Vlad TV down. And I think that's when he kind of really started to like invest in the content a little bit more. And it makes sense because at that moment, it's like, you need a Raekwon or you need a fucking, you know, a Dennis Rodman or whatever on your platform to kind of make it look good. But we now live in this kind of weird new era where people getting paid for podcast appearances is like the new normal. But you never did any of that while you were at Spotify, I kind of assume?
First of all, Vlad fucked up the market, but understand
know, right?
Because his, like, to be honest, like, Vlad is really cutting checks. Like, but like this, it got weird to me at points when like for example, like we hit up Adrian Broner and he would be like, "Yo, this is my fee," and I was like, "What?" Like, interviews were never paid. You get what I mean?
It was like, hey, listen,
like, you shouldn't be coming to my platform if you don't see a mutual benefit in the promotion or getting whatever information that you want to get out. And I shouldn't be interviewing you if I don't think that you being on my platform is worth it. But now, like, you know, for example, I think what Vlad did spawned the like of a lot of people that, I don't know if you pay them, but like it spawned the Charleston Whites of this world, who literally Charleston at the point was going around getting like 7,500 in a podcast, right?
He still is, and he honestly does so many numbers that it's like you can understand. And I know people who've paid him like a shitload of money for interviews, but at the same time, if you're Charleston White, like, why are you going to be just hitting random podcasts all the time, knowing that they're profiting tens of thousands of dollars off of this shit and not expect something in return? Like, it totally makes sense from his perspective, but it also is kind of weird because, like, in the comedy landscape, I'm pretty sure none of this is taking place because they correctly assume that, like, you go on a comedy podcast, you get seen, people go to your gigs, people buy your merch, people whatever, like, stream your content, and that's how you're basically profiting from it. But you have a lot of people in hip hop, whether it's like a Charleston White or a J Main, who kind of like correctly realize that they're not monetizing themselves or their content to such an extent that it's just automatically going to make sense. And if it does, like, you know, there's just too much competition because a J Main has me, DJU, and whoever the fuck else, like all these different platforms kind of competing to make content with him. So even when I tried to sign J Main to No Jumper, it was just like, I'm competing with the fact that he's getting paid a shitload of money to go do all these different interviews all the time. And when I'm competing against that, it's like, well, I'd have to like pay him too much to be exclusive to this platform. We couldn't come to any kind of conclusion.
So you know, obviously, I'm pretty sure you've seen that. Actually, you know, I saw your comments about me doing the Academy. And by the way, there's a little bit of shade, but there was also very positive.
I wasn't trying to be shady at all. I honestly was just acknowledging what this challenge is going to be like because I threw a lot of fucking paint at the wall trying out all these different hosts and stuff, and it's like some of them worked and some of them, like, honestly, AD was kind of like the first one who really got real traction, you know, like House Phone, people were fucking with him, but like with AD, he kind of like seized the opportunity and like really like took that on. With your shit, it's like my main concern is like I think you need to be on camera with him. Like if every episode of the Academy to start is Ak and his fucking 3, 4, 5 different pals talking on camera, I think that could work. I think that the idea of just putting them on camera without you is going to be like the audience is not going to know what to do with it. The same way I think that Selena thing that you did probably would have worked better if you were on camera with that too, as opposed to it just being her and her fucking yes man friend sitting there with her.
Hey, no, I agree with you with that. And by the way, the reason why you were definitely spot on with even the analysis of like Selena. Like Selena was just too far gone for me to be sitting next to her, and I have too much going on. Yeah. It's like I couldn't go down that route. So it was one of those like I'll produce it, but hopefully like, you know, we could kind of like be involved, but not really. Which you ultimately you kind of, especially if it's coming out of your channel, like you're 100% right. Shit, I even had a whole conversation with like a bunch of guys yesterday. I was like, no, Adam's right. Like for example, the reason why like even that episode that was filmed after the show. Like I was exhausted. I did so much that day. I was like sleeping up at my other studio. So like they did it with AD, who salute to AD. Like he was just like powering through everything. But you're right. And I told him the same thing. I said, yo, I'm glad y'all did the episode with AD, but like we have to do these episodes to kind of explain, because that was the biggest thing with the Selena thing, or anytime I change content. I don't know if you probably think the same about your channel, but I know my channel, yo, they're so married to me doing one thing that I even had to kind of explain when I started putting podcasts. They were so used to news little updates. I kind of even had to explain when I started putting full-length podcasts to the point where you put something that's you're not even on camera for, it's just straight hate. Like they don't even fuck what it is. So I agree with you on that.
100%. Because I mean, I've always had interests that are all over the place. So it's like in the beginning when No Jumper was this like hip, trendy SoundCloud rap thing that like people were just like really engaged with. It's like the unfortunate reality is that I wanted to interview Riley Reid and I wanted to interview some fucking Pokemon Go YouTuber and I wanted to interview Nade Shot and like all these just random comedians and personalities and stuff. And that's like when I go back in my mind and think about like what I could have done with No Jumper, that always kind of stands out to me as like, what if I only ever just did interviews with these super cool rappers in that moment? Because there was a lot of like fans who wanted me to just talk to Suicide Boys and all these other like rappers who fucking wear FTP and like, you know, like are kind of in like the same category of rapper, you know? And like for me, I just kind of, I couldn't really do it. Like I had to like do shit all over the place. And sometimes I'm like, damn, that was a mistake because I could have made the brand cooler by being more like a fashion brand and being more exclusive with it and more aesthetic with it versus just sort of throwing paint at the wall and doing everything. Although but that is kind of like the flavor of No Jumper that makes it interesting to people to a certain extent, is the fact that we do talk to all these different people and we do have all these crazy ass characters. Like to a certain extent, I don't know how cool a brand from like a streetwear fashion type perspective you can really have when it's a podcast, because podcasting and making YouTube content of people just talking on camera is just kind of like an uncool thing inherently. Like it's just not, you don't picture people wearing a ton of podcast merch. Like it just doesn't really seem like the sexiest thing on earth versus like people all over the world wear skateboard company merch because, you know, a video part of somebody skateboarding for 3 minutes and doing their hardest tricks is like a cool thing. People telling jokes are loud. Like this is like informative for the audience and stuff, but I don't think somebody's gonna buy like an Adam and Akademiks live stream in the middle of September piece of merch. Like that just doesn't seem like it has that aesthetic weight.
No, well, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I think the space has evolved, but even like for example, you know, we just did our first live show. Like, shit. You have to remember, you started off, and even when I first even like linked up with you, like you have a store. Like we've kind of just been based online, and this is like a new undergoing for us, right? Like we've never done a meetup, my nigga, like ever. We never done anything. So it's like this year is kind of like about challenges and like really just trying to get out of our comfort zone because like, you know, we stream and I stream on like 5 different platforms and the number is always great, but it's like we have to convert it into reality. And I remember when you were going through the whole situation with AD and obviously T-Rail and like even House Phone eventually leaving. I remember I hit you on the side and there was a lot of people, especially my audience, was like, yo, you gotta go crazy on them. But I had a lot of grace, but specifically, and I remember hitting you about this. I said, yo, I'm gonna be honest with you. And this is as humble as you could be, or maybe my audience have heard me be. Like I used to tell you, I said, I'm learning from you because I'm like, eventually I'm gonna do this and I'm trying to watch what you're doing. And even if I think you're doing something wrong, you know, they always say like, you know, a smart man learns from his own mistakes, a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. But you start doing this shit and I was like, all right, so if I do sign people, how do I sign them? Does it have to be kind of like an exclusive thing? Does it have to have like a non-compete? Like you went through it and, you know, obviously the whole thing with like, you know, AD and T-Rail and everything happened. I'm wondering, where's that situation at right now?
You know, it's like on one hand, I got nothing against them, so I kind of don't have anything negative to say about him or whatever. But then on the other hand, you know, and I say that because it's like, it's cool to be like a good person and to not hold grudges and shit. But then you have like the more realistic aspect of it, which is that they really tried to like take me out and like eliminate me from the fucking content space. And they really like, in a way that's kind of different than even the Rory and Mal thing. Like Rory and Mal dipped out of the Joe Budden thing and they threw shade on the way out and they, you know, attempted to do damage to Joe's career on the way out because of how disrespected they felt and stuff like that. And I think that they had some pretty legitimate grievances. From my perspective, I don't really think those guys had very legitimate grievances. I think that their grievances were pretty surface level. And going back to it, I think that we can get to the whole disrespect angle of it, because that's kind of like the main tip I have for you. But let's get back to that.
Let's hash this out a little bit.
Okay.
So I disagree a little bit, right? And I think business wise, and you just making, I've always had this thought about this whole thing. Business wise, I think you're right, but I do believe that the guys that you had brought something unique to No Jumper that Ruri and Millie Mall never brought to the Joe Budden show. I believe
that's probably fair. Yeah, you're right.
What AD and T-Rell brought to that building and brought in terms of perception, and also ingratiated with even the community at large, I could imagine at times it's probably hard for them to just like kind of look at it from like a bird's eye view, like, and be like, hey, okay, this is just business. They're probably like, yo, I put my life on the line for like this motherfucking shit right here. Like, yeah, if I feel I'm not being treated right, or if I feel like I'm not being respected, or I feel like I'm being disrespected, shit, that's gonna make me feel a certain type of way, which is kind of opposite to, them other dudes, like Ruri and Millie Mall, like they were upset about, like they said it was contractual stuff, but really they were just upset about being called workers. Like if we really keep it 100, I think your guys were more, they felt, and you've heard this criticism though. Van like probably laid it out to you when he came up there and he said, yo, I do think there's a lack of empathy and probably just how you deal with people. Like, if there was no friendship, maybe that would fly, but there's going to be bruised egos and people are probably going to, get fed up at a point if they actually think you're friends.
No,
right?
I mean, I can definitely own up to that, is that in terms of how I deal with people, and I've made this mistake many times in my career, even going back to the BMX days, where there would be somebody that I had a close relationship with, we're around each other a lot, and I'm paying them in some way or whatever. And then at a certain point, I don't want to pay him anymore, or it doesn't seem like a good arrangement anymore, and I want to exit this relationship. And I think that on the way out in those kind of situations, you really like owe it to that person to really be human about it and have the extended hour-long conversation or whatever. And I've always been somebody who just kind of like moved on to the next thing business-wise way too quickly and just didn't really like do that exit talk, and I'm not sure that the exit talk always guarantees you that you have like a amicable part, but like I think that definitely there's been a lot of people over the years that I should have and this is just, it's going to be a problem in business no matter what, that if you hire your friends, it's just going to be, there's going to be times where you have to then fire your friends. And then at that point, they're probably not going to be friends with you anymore. And you're going to have to deal with that. And I've seen it happen to me over and over and over, especially as I like transitioned into No Jumper from the BMX shit. But I guess, with those dudes in general, while they were at No Jumper, I wish that I had like engaged in more of like real relationships with them. And I mean, to a certain extent, they were coming to my fucking parties at my house, like, with my girl's family and shit like that. And, there was a bit of that, but I probably should have done more of it. And I think that like part of me kind of pulling away from them as like real friends in like the last 6 months, let's say, of that whole thing was that I started to get really resentful of the fact that they were clearly focused on streaming and that they clearly were focused on building their own platforms. And it's like, I have somebody that I know who's been like sending me, they've been like rewatching the last couple months of the No Jumper show and shit and sending me clips that stood out to them of how they were talking to me towards the end and just how much disrespect there was being thrown around. And that's kind of like one of the biggest things that I wish that I had done differently, is that I think AD realized like really early on that he could get a cheap laugh by saying fuck No Jumper or fuck Adam 22 or whatever, or just kind of playing this like rebellious like toddler role for a period of time. And I think that's
man.
I mean, I'm just saying like that he just like at a certain point was just going back to the well way too many times on this same fucking joke of like, oh look, I'm acting bad, I'm acting up, I'm acting crazy, whatever. Like it just, I should have, as soon as he started to do that, I should have said, listen, you can't ever disrespect the brand. You know, you can't you can do stuff like be focused on your own career. It's all good, but like you just can't cross that line of disrespecting the brand or me as the leader of the brand. Like that's just the one thing that can't fly. You can disagree with me. We can have heated conversations, whatever, but you just can't like really go against when they say nobody's bigger than the program. No Jumper as a whole is the program. So it's like anybody who's going to be part of the team over here or whatever, it's like it has to be clear to the people out there that No Jumper is bigger than any one single person's actions. And therefore, if somebody loses their job, it's like the only opinion to be had of it is like, okay, like that's what the company decided that they needed to do. And I was just like, there was just way too much like angsty fucking rebellious shit going on at a certain point. And that's probably like the biggest thing that I could recommend to you is that you just have to have the conversations to the extent where people really know what the line is and what they can and can't do. Because and would that have really worked out with those guys in the long run? I don't know, because T-Rell is he's just like the most like rebellious person that I've ever met, which like makes him cool, but also like, and people don't even really get to see it on camera because a lot of the conversations and the arguments that we would be having in the group chat would just be like the most mind-blowingly infuriating shit ever, where he would be so wrong about something and just like doubling and tripling down on it to such an insane extent. And then also kind of like immediately after be like, I was trolling you. And if I was trolling you, I got you. Haha, I got you out of character.
It comes across like when it comes to like AD, it's like, there's some type of, okay, like obviously this will work out, but whatever. It feel like you don't fuck with T-Rell at all, bro. I'm gonna be honest. And I'm gonna ask two questions in one.
Okay, but he hurts. My feelings are the most hurt about him because I believed in him the most as a broadcaster, and I felt like he had the most room to grow with No Jumper, that's why it's kind of weird now, is because I feel like you're not seeing him grow because he's the best podcaster in the room 9 times out of 10. And so as a result, like I felt like he was getting a lot better when he was around me because he was learning and progressing and stuff like that. And I feel like his audience has really kind of like seen the limits of where he's at as an interviewer, as a personality. And it's not like they don't fuck with him, but I feel like the interest is kind of waning because they liked him more when they were seeing him be challenged on a consistent basis. And I feel like he's not doing enough of that at this point.
Okay, so the next thing I do want to ask, so compared to your current staff now, right? So your current staff now, as opposed to like AD and T-Rell and them, in hindsight, do you wish you had changed, or do you wish you had worked it out with these guys now in a new contract, or do you wish? Like, I'm butchering this question. What do you think would have done better? Even if you had to give up more. Work it out with AD and T-Rell, or like these new guys, because you have to go through the whole thing again with them, trying to make them stars.
But the thing is that like, Sharp was already like doing the most numbers out of pretty much anybody on the platform before AD and T-Rell left, So Bricc Baby had kind of like just started to come around, or had only been on camera a couple of times. At that time, Flacco had already been there. Almighty had already been there. So it's like we did say goodbye to a lot of people kind of all at the same time. And it is unfortunate that we haven't really like we need to add more people. It's just we've been kind of, sort of antsy about who we add and stuff like that. But I think because we're doing the store thing again. And I feel like the store is going to be a big way that we kind of like are able to find a lot more talent and create a lot more content, because I feel like there was like a spontaneity about the brand in 2017 and 2018 with the store, where there was just constantly crazy ass shit happening on the streams and the vlogs and stuff like that. And when we got rid of the store, I feel like we kind of lost some of that, and we kind of made up for it with just having all these different personalities on stream. But I wish that I had that mentality about finding more hosts while I was still at the store, because I think when I was at the store in 2017, 2018, I think that I thought that if I was going to add anybody to the podcast, that they needed to be able to do like a great sit down long form interview like the way that I can, which is very, very rare. Like most people just are not ready for that. And even like AD and TRL kind of like struggle to be able to do that. And they're like pretty good on camera overall. Like to be the person that people really want to see interview somebody, I feel like is one of the harder things to pull off in media, to be that guy, you know? And so, but I didn't realize when I had the store in 2017, 2018, that you could just kind of like do these streams where you just got a bunch of crazy fucking people to be coming on and stuff. And I didn't like harness that the way that I wanted to back then. And I'm hoping that we can kind of like grab some of that energy through the store, because it's gotten like, it's kind of weird to like audition talent not on camera, or like, you know, the way that we are now.
And that's what I was thinking as well, right? Which is kind of interesting, right? So obviously with AD and TRL, like it's kind of the epitome of, they're working at No Jumper. You're kind of giving them their start in media, but then they start doing some shit at the crib, which they're in control of, they own, they're more incentivized to do. But here's the thing, like, for example, I'll use Flacco as an example, right? I don't know if, like, and somebody said this to me and I started looking at it, like, Flacco is way better on the stream than he is on No Jumper. You know what I mean? So it's like, for example, what does that mean, right? That means that Flacco will probably be a bigger draw on No Jumper if he gets bigger by himself. So doesn't that put you in an interesting place where you kind of are incentivized to want them to do things outside of No Jumper, because he could probably get a bigger, or maybe he could accelerate more and bring a bigger audience that might transfer on a No Jumper,
I mean,
right?
I feel like the thing with Flacco is that he's reading from a script of sorts in his videos, so he's able to like do a line a couple different times, and that's why he doesn't stutter, and that's why it sounds so much smoother. But I agree. His videos are really good, and I've gotten used to watching his channel, which is kind of fucking weird to be like watching his channel and thinking like, why am I watching this guy who works for me's YouTube videos? I don't know. But with AD and TRL, yeah, I mean, honestly, like what people need to do, and nobody's going to do this because it sounds terrible, but people need to go back and watch like the last 6 months of At the End of the Day and just see how dry and boring it got, because they were so focused on their own content and their own platforms. And it got to the point where when they would get on camera together, they would just talk about their fucking YouTube analytics or what they had going on with their brands and shit like that. And I wasn't watching it, but I would like read through the timestamps to like grab clips or whatever. And I just started to like really dread like Wednesday night or Thursday morning when I got the timestamps in my email, because I would read through it and just there was no clips. There was like, they weren't talking about anything interesting or exciting. And that was just, it would just kill me. It would piss me off every fucking time. And this is what I did wrong, is that I should have like hit them up, had a real sit down conversation about it and express this more clearly, because instead I would just kind of take jabs. I would take jabs at them in the middle of episodes. What'd you say?
You should have did a deal with them to bring them under the brand. Like, I think that's what it is. I think even what Flacco is doing, you know what I mean? I think if you guys have a bigger partnership, you should bring what he does into what No Jumper is doing.
That is a good idea. But I think, okay, this is the thing, is that, let's say when they left, let's say back on Fig was making $20,000 per month.
Yeah.
And so if I'm the big company and I'm going to say to them like, hey, I'm going to sign you guys to a deal. You're going to be in-house. You're going to do this on the No Jumper channel. Maybe you put the clips on the other channel, or we take over ownership of your analytics on the other YouTube, whatever. Like, at that point, like, how much am I going to have to pay them? Probably more than $20,000, right? If they're making $20,000 on their own, I probably need to give them $40,000, right? So the question is like,
certainly.
Well, maybe $30,000, but you probably got to give them more than they're making on their own, right?
But what about this, right? Like, again, I think that's how Barstool does it. Like, you don't need to own everything, right? Like, that's their show, that's their brand. Like, it's kind of like
has a value add.
Be like, hey, listen, like, you could leverage their attention and the numbers they're getting to get bigger deals for just the brand of No Jumper.
Right.
It trickles down to them.
In theory, but like, that's the whole thing with us, is like, what value add are you bringing to the table when it comes to the platform? Because Barstool has a gigantic fucking ad network. And if you watch the Gilly and Wallow podcast, it's like this torturous experience of having to fast forward through a 20-minute insurance lecture or a mortgage guy or whatever. But hey, shout out to them. That's probably like why Barstool apparently allegedly gave them so much money. I mean, I do sometimes wonder about those numbers when they're talking about a $10 million deal or $100 million. I don't. To me, that's kind of like hard to understand how the fuck that's.
I heard it's 30.
What are we even talking about? Over the course of a year? Over the course of 2 years? Because their views don't add up to that, right?
I think 30 for two. I think 30 for two or 3. I've heard it's more, but like
that's like $1 million a month.
That number makes sense to me. I don't know.
So let's say that each episode of the podcast is worth $100,000, which seems ridiculous. But let's say that they make $100,000. Barstool makes $100,000 off each piece. You're telling me that like that's normal? Like I don't understand how you saw that much fucking advertising on a podcast. And this is not hate at all, because if they actually are getting that kind of money, that's amazing. I wonder if it's like marketing.
I actually might believe that. If we talk about just advertising, Jesus Christ, they have 18 times more ads than any podcast.
Yeah, but it's still like 3 or 4 ads per podcast.
They utilize all of their, like, like for example, Joe, he's anti-ad, so he'll give you a 4-hour podcast, not a single fucking shout out, right? I don't know what you do, but maybe you have a little product placement, or maybe like you have like a quick read.
We do,
but it's not like habitual. Like, I remember watching like a Floyd Mayweather interview, and it literally just cut mid-interview to like a whole nother interview.
I know. With some mortgage guy who's probably a scammer, right? I don't know. Like, who the fuck are these guys? And sometimes that is the number one thing that will make me not interview you, is if I Google you or search you up on YouTube and I realize that you paid to do an interview on another platform. So now I'm offended that you actually seriously think I'm going to interview you for free. So that's just a word of advice to those guys. As soon as you pay to be on a podcast, a Floyd Mayweather podcast, let's say, I feel like that kind of X's you out of ever having any kind of legitimacy on other podcasts. I might be wrong, but at least for me, it's a major turnoff.
Yeah, but like I love the kind of trade business ideas with you. So where? Okay, I also made the statement, right? So for example, right, you had said actually producing, like I think it was at the end of the day or whatever. You said you were losing money on. Said
right.
I don't think so.
I mean, now, from a YouTube perspective, yes. Now,
it's not a YouTube perspective. You can't release content from a YouTube perspective.
Okay, but from an advertiser perspective or whatever, it's like these ads don't pay some crazy amount, and we had our deal structured so that we're basically given like 50% of the advertisement money from a MyBookie ad or whatever to them at that point. Like that's basically how we had negotiated it. So I mean, from my perspective, it's like maybe we were breaking even or we're probably losing money. And a big part of that, though, was the fact that YouTube stopped paying as much for live stream content. Like during the pandemic, every single episode of like the No Jumper Show or At the End of the Day or whatever, I would look at the analytics and it would be like $3,000 from AdSense on an episode that got 150K, which from my perspective is really fucking good. And that allowed us to pay the talent and still have a good amount left over for ourselves. And then we also do brand deals on top of that. But at a certain point, that shit got cut in half, cut by like 90%. I don't know if it's just me, but in general, when we upload something, it is very difficult to get shit monetized these days. And that's why when I do an interview like the fucking THF Bezu one that we're dropping right now, it's like there are just pieces of it that we want to put out like immediately. And it takes fucking 3 days to get shit reviewed on YouTube these days.
Yeah, no. So I look at me and you, and even Vlad, the way we, like, honestly, even my content now, I've always, ever since I left or ever since I went to Everyday Struggle, YouTube revenue always became like one of the least amount of like income that I got.
Right.
So, but I know like if you're throwing a show or if you're having these shows, it has to be a good chunk of it. But like, I mean, you guys put shit up on Snapchat, Facebook, right? Like there's other ways to kind of use that same content.
But that's why I was getting annoyed when they were fucking doing episodes at the end of the day that had no clips. It's like, we're not putting shit on Snapchat when there's nothing good happening on an episode, and it's just you sitting around looking sleepy, talking about your YouTube analytics or talking about your girl's new nail line or whatever the fuck it is. It's just like, that's not a clip. That's not gonna do anything on Snapchat. It's not gonna do anything on Facebook. So it's just basically like just garbage, useless content, and the views were dropping. Like, people have revisionist history, and they forget that, like, at a certain point at the end of the day was doing like 250, maybe 300K in the course of like a week. And then at a certain point, it became like 150. And that was because their audience was basically being slurped up by their other channels, which, credit to them. But me as a businessman and as a person who's building something, I should have just stepped in at a certain point and done something about it to make it work on both sides. What exactly that would have been. But I feel like as soon as they started doing it, like, you actually made this point to AD very eloquently in a way that I hadn't really heard anybody say, but you were like, yo, like, Adam was stuck in a bad position because he was having his fan base slurped up by you guys. Like, he was paying people to become his competitors. But then if I were to say anything about it, I would have so looked like a hater and looked like I was hating on them being independent and owning their own platforms and yada, 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 that it would have been very, very, very tough for me to come off good in that conversation. And AD gave you like the most bullshit answer, because he's like, no, if Adam told me that, I would have just completely switched up my content. I'm like, I'm watching this like, you cannot believe that anybody at home seriously thinks you would have stopped doing drama ass content or whatever just because I asked you to, because I thought that it was stepping on No Jumper's toes too much. Like, it would have been World War III if I actually tried to have that conversation with him, because AD is very like rebellious. Like, he's just not the kind of person who would have. To be fair,
though, a little piece of that though like is your fault, just because what ended up being the most highly watched No Jumper content at that point was inner office beef, which, granted, I'm probably guessing you're saying, well, if this happened at the office, let's discuss it on our shows. Right. These guys are going home, and then they might not have been there. Like, again, so I think it's harder for them to only keep inter-office shit at the office, when really a lot of people want their own personal POVs outside of the context just to show. You know what I mean?
This is the thing about that, is that a lot of people, when I said that they were basically responsible for a huge percentage of the fighting and the drama and the gossipy bullshit that was going on, people laughed at me and acted like I was projecting and that it was really about me. But since those dudes left, we still have a whole bunch of fucking hosts, and you haven't seen any of them beefing with each other. Like, yes, they get into skirmishes and yell at each other on stream a little bit, but the temperature has just been brought down so much as soon as those dudes left. And then meanwhile, when you look at their channels, let's be real, the only clips that do well on their channels are the ones that are talking about No Jumper, or if you remove that gigantic category of their content, because that's like all of their most viewed clips, it's just other drama shit. It's just like them basically, like, they do this thing called cooking, where they just diss each other and just make accusations and just basically stir the pot. And it's like, they're pretty upfront about it, which to me makes it pretty obvious that, like, oh, you guys were the ones who are basically like initiating this climate of beef. And when I say you guys, I'm basically talking AD and TRL, because the whole era before them, House Phone and Cam Girl and shit, like, we always just got along. There would be crazy dramatic things happening in the background at No Jumper sometimes, with people getting fired or leaving, and, like, you know, drama happening at the store, at the like, all of it was basically like hidden from the public, because we all just kind of like had the common sense to like not really bring a large percentage of that stuff to the front or to the table in terms of what we talked about on the podcast. And so if me and Cam Girl were arguing off camera or whatever, we just never brought it to the camera. And that totally changed when those dudes came in. And now it's kind of like back to normal, where I know people have problems with each other and they get into it and shit, but it's just never like playing out on camera the same way. And I mean, that was the whole thing, is that there was all this drama and shit here, but we weren't really profiting from it. Like, we were very rarely the people who actually had clips about that stuff, where you had something crazy like fucking Kiki, AD's brother, like leaving the channel or whatever. I never said one thing about it. I never talked about it once. But everybody else was talking about it nonstop, and it's like my business, and everybody else is talking about it, and I'm not even participating. It got kind of frustrating.
Hey, Adams. Yeah. So we're definitely coming to LA to do a live show, man. The Fig Community people wanted to do some shit. You want to be a part of it? We could all reunite, man. What's up?
I'm not
That'll
pulling
be a
up on
hell
the
of a show.
ops. Hell no.
Why not?
I'm gonna get my shit sprayed if I go over there. I'm gonna have a bunch of dudes with the same name fucking pointing Dracos at me, bro.
Why you act? It's not like, I'm gonna be honest with you. Well, first of all, I did tell T-Rail, not T-Rail, I told AD, I said, hey, I felt like, if I'm gonna call a spade, they let you just go crazy. Like, the Big 22 was for real born during that whole era.
Yeah.
But
the Rooster,
I'm gonna be honest,
or the 22
it feels like you're stoking a fire more than they're like doing anything at this point. I feel like, they do their thing, but they're not like picking at you. You're picking at them a little bit. And I understand why, but you are. So that's why I'm like, yo, hey, listen, you do know at a certain point, especially they've been taking the high road. I don't know if they're going to still take the high road, but eventually a reunion is probably going to happen, right? Like, come on.
If a reunion ever happens, it will happen on home turf, benefiting yours truly, not me pulling up to somebody else's fucking hangout where they kick it. That's not happening. But anyway, if they want to repent to their sins for their sins, they're welcome anytime. But you have to remember,
AD told me this, and I'm wondering what you think about it. He said he knew it was over at No Jumper the moment him and T-Rail did a live show, and they did maybe 1,000 people without you.
No, they did the exact same. They did the exact same venue that No Jumper did our first live show at, but it was like a couple months later.
Well, I mean, that's still impressive. So it shows that they have some cachet that didn't rely on the No Jumper brand. That's important, right?
Yeah, but it was like, it kind of relied on the No Jumper brand, because I don't think that they're, I mean, I'm not saying that they won't have success on their upcoming live shows or anything, but the live stream that they announced at the Novo or whatever, that didn't sell out. That's still, they have tickets available, which in comparison, those other shows that they did while they were at No Jumper sold out immediately. So, I mean, I feel like they're kind of feeling some of those growing pains of sort of being away from the place that put them on in the first place. But I encourage you.
That's what you're trying to say, man. Be away from the plantation. That's what you're trying to say.
I would never make a metaphor like that. But what I am saying is that when you look at how it actually played out, is that when they left No Jumper, I said next to nothing about them for a long ass time. And then the Jason Love storyline, aka Cut Gate, that plays out. And then I start kind of doing more media and stuff, but it's with people who don't want to ask me about the Figmunity exit. And then Bootleg Kev hits me up. He wants to do an interview, because that's why I wasn't talking to you or whatever on stream, is because after they left, I was just like, I have no reason to go on other people's platforms and kind of ruminate about the last couple months. I just want to focus on what I'm doing on my channel. So I was saying no to everybody who was trying to have me on. But then I did Bootleg Kev, and I took some extremely light jabs, if you want to go back and look at it, where basically he says, don't you think that they're making more money on their own platforms than they were making with you? And I said, fuck no. And went into a little bit of detail about the economics of what they're making off of their shared platform. Because, back on Fig and Community, we're already going before all this shit. Figmunity World, the channel, is basically the thing that they started when they left No Jumper. It's not exactly setting the world on fire from my perspective. The content is doing significantly worse than it was doing when it was on No Jumper. And I was honest about that.
It's unfair for you to say that, because you're at the point where they couldn't continue to do back on Fig and Community, so they had to make a change. I
never had that conversation. I never told them that I wanted them to stop streaming or that I had any kind of issue with them streaming. To be honest, me taking AD off the Tuesday show was me trying to get a grip on what was going on at my own business, and basically get something going on that felt like it was a little bit more under my control. But I mean, they left to start that channel. And so you have to compare what they were making on No Jumper to what they make off that channel. I can do the math in my head. I know it's probably not great. I think the reason why they're not out here talking about how rich they're getting off Figmunity World either, because it's just obviously it's not pulling in numbers that would suggest that they're killing it or anything like that.
AD showed his space, so he said he was getting 300 a week. By the way, I will say that I think YouTube
300
viewership just
episode, and that wasn't for him. He had a set salary plus additional bonuses on top of it. So and that's why my attitude on him and my attitude on T-Rail is a little bit different, because AD dipped out and kind of like put hella pressure on everybody to leave on the way out. I feel like T-Rail got tricked about his spot, because we now know, and I'm not going to get super in depth with it, but he's in the hole for millions of dollars. He's in debt. So he probably needed that money a lot more than AD, who maybe could have afforded to take a risk. But I mean, when you look at AD lost No Jumper and Caffeine in the same month. So he's definitely like not exactly on top of the world. He was probably expecting the Caffeine check to keep him going while they did the Figmunity thing. And then that shit got yoinked as soon as he left No Jumper. So, I mean, it is what it is. But I was just honest with Bootleg Kev when he asked me some questions. And then AD basically like went on a rant, had some of his homies talk crazy, act like they were going to beat me up or whatever. And then instead of doing the thing that I would typically do, which is kind of take the high road and ignore them or whatever, I got in the trenches and I made it clear that I wasn't scared. I wasn't worried about them. They could do whatever the fuck they want. And then that is basically what encouraged them to stop talking about me, because I fucking took aim at them and told them I didn't give a fuck about all that tough guy rah-rah shit, which I appreciated when I was seeing you do it about some other people too. But I think in general, as journalists, as media people, you can't back down when you have the tough guys of the world telling you that they're going to turn you into a pack. You got to let them know, hey, I don't give a fuck. I'm not scared of you, and I'm moving right. So if you want to try something, go ahead. And they stopped talking about me as soon as I did that.
His girl,
huh?
You kind of mentioned his girl. What's his girl? Heather.
Leather.
You call her Leather?
It's a word it's the word on the streets. But no, she showed up in my DMs. She showed up in my DMs, inviting me on her mixed drink show, which is doing an impressive 10,000 views per episode. And she invited me on her fucking podcast. And I basically acted interested at first, and then I hit her with the boom, psych. That shit, what did I say? Psych, that shit is ass, something like that. And I posted on my story, and then she blocked me. So I haven't been up on what Leather is up to since then. But keep in mind, the only reason why I had any kind of animosity towards Leather is the fact that she kept having her little fucking opinions about me on Back on Fig every single week, like worse than T-Rel was. She's sitting there acting all high and mighty, talking about, we got swag, I'm lit. Oh, I'm lit. She started a YouTube channel. It has 1,000 subscribers. You're not lit. You're riding on T-Rel's coattails, and he was nice enough to let you on your show, but now she gave his homie COVID, so that shit is all fucked up. The fan base turned on her. So I'm just over here reading their Reddit here from time to time and just sort of, making observations. But from my perspective, they fucked up. They fucked up. They left. They're making a lot less money, and they have way less of a platform, way less of an audience that they're talking to. And so that's my real opinion. But after this, I'll go back to being nice and not saying shit.
Hold on. How much energy? Because how much energy do you think you spend on them as opposed to they spend on you?
I mean, they're limited to their group chat, whereas I have freedom of speech and I can kind of just say whatever I want when people like you ask me about it. On my platform, for the past couple of weeks, we have not discussed them on the No Jumper show. I'm happy to be in that space. It might only have been like one episode since I last talked about them, but I'm trying to leave it in the past. But you got to understand that I was mortally wounded when they chose to leave and when they chose the path of disloyalty as opposed to, staying down with the person that gave them an audience in the first place. So the fact that like the No Jumper show is doing better than the Figmunity podcast or Back on Fig at this point, does that make me feel happy? Yes, it does. I'm not going to lie about that. But I'm just using it for energy. It's like you see the Michael Jordan documentary where they were talking about how he would like make up beefs in his head with certain players because he would use that as fuel. I'm not saying that I'm making these beefs up in my head because I actually have a real reason to be aggrieved about the way that things went down. But in my head, I am harnessing that. In my head, when I'm listening to King Von, he's talking about them. So I'm rocking with it. The 22 stir is using that energy, but I'm trying to like tame myself and not just constantly go in because I feel like it's kind of like, and especially like I thought of Big Ak when I found out about a bunch of different stuff, like the fact that T-Rel's millions of dollars in debt and that his girl has a sordid past that I won't speak on. But when I found out about that, I thought, what would Akademiks do? Akademiks would have done a fucking 4-hour rant on YouTube and had 10,000 viewers and be going crazy and everybody would have loved it. But I'm not you. Like I just there's a certain part of me that doesn't want to bring that sort of like aggression into my life, and I just chose to kind of take the high road. But yeah, I'm definitely down to go there if I feel like I need to.
Damn. Hey, listen, I hope y'all figure it out some way, somehow. But anyway, what else haven't we covered? I know you probably got some questions for me.
I definitely wrote some stuff down. Let me take a look. Oh, so okay. Give me your overall impression of the Traplo Ross Youngboy documentary, because it really sent me into a Youngboy and Quando spiral where I've just been listening to them like crazy. And they really got some of the best music of the last few years. I'm going to be real.
So I'm gonna be honest with you. I thought it was a good Youngboy documentary. I don't think it was necessarily the documentary that would be the Youngboy crime documentary. And I think some people watched it to kind of get what they got from the King Von documentary, to be like, hey, we're gonna find out if this guy has been putting money on people's heads to get them killed. We want to, like, that's what the audience kind of wants. Like, unfortunately, they want to know, like, hey, is he responsible for those guys dying?
And Vaughn is just one of a kind. Like you might never find another person who has the combination of being a big rap star and then also having all these bodies. Like with Youngboy, yeah, you have all this death around him, but I mean, it's totally plausible that people from his gang or from his label or from like around him were doing this and that he didn't even have any fucking clue. So it's kind of like it can only be so interesting. I still thought it was pretty fucking phenomenal. But yeah, definitely like, I don't know if Traplo Ross will ever have source material like that again.
No, I think he will. I think after this one, and if I could give him like some real constructive advice, is that, listen, first of all, you're already in that space where you're going to get so much criticism because you're doing these documentaries that's getting so much, so much energy and attention. You have to start going a little bit into investigative. I'm going to be honest with you, which means you have to unearth shit that isn't public, because right now he's really good at compiling the publicly available shit. And I think other than Vaughn, who literally put it all in publicly available places, his documentaries, I think we want to see him almost. It's kind of like you ever heard of Chicago Crime Scene 88 or something?
Yeah.
Chicago. Yeah. Yo, that dude was saying some shit that I remember watching his channel with my mouth open, like, what the fuck? Like, no way this is true. He was saying new information that I had no idea. Years come to pass, it was all right. The motherfucker was right all the way. And I think, obviously that's very dangerous, number one. That's why like he always had like a voice changer. We don't even know what he looks like. But I think fans have this insatiable appetite for that.
Yeah,
you know what I
mean? Because at a certain point, you're gonna get to the point where just like all these dudes that Vlad interviews who are they feel comfortable, they're gangsters, they're solid, whatever, but they feel comfortable talking about shit that happened in Tupac's era in terms of murders and shootings and shit like that, because it just seems so implausible that a case could be put together against them. I mean, there are bodies that I know about from off-camera conversations that I can never say on camera that I'm like secretly thinking of in the back of my head, like, oh, that is the fucking documentary to make right there. But I mean, I can never bring that kind of thing to the table.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's the future of this shit, is that shit being so old. And some of this shit is 10 years old. It's fucking 12 years old or whatever when you talk about people that died in the whole Chicago shit. But that at some point, maybe even like 10 years from now, I mean, you already have a J Main who's comfortable, and we've confirmed this story with multiple people that Fredo Santana walked up shooting at J Main or whatever, and that he used an Oblakian female as a human shield. I don't think the bullets actually hit her, but he was holding her up. I mean, that multiple people have fucking confirmed that, and that's just like, that's the craziest shit in the world, that within like 10 years of it happening, we got to actually hear that shit on camera. It's probably bad for the future of humanity that we even know about that, but I mean, that's pretty crazy, dude.
Right before I get to Gunna, because I want to ask you about Gunna. What do you, because I know Van also asked you about this. No Jumper seems to be very entrenched in gang politics. Like when I go on your channel and I see the gay Crip speaks, like I'm like, yo, what the fuck? I'm like, I look at him like, yo, I could never do an interview. By the way, the dude, he emailed me too. He said, hey, I did it. He sent me a picture with you and him. And I guess he has like publicists. And I was just like, I can't get it off that I'm interviewing a gay crip. Like, I can't get it off. Not on my channel.
Sure you could.
Like,
why not? Everybody interviewing him.
No. But hear what I'm saying. Like, just your channel has turned into, like, there's a lot of gang entrenched politics. Like, for example, like, a lot of stuff will stay, not said. But like, even when AD came in, I'm talking to AD about a bunch of shit. He started bringing out certain politics to me, and I was fucking mind blown. I was like, what? All this shit's going down in LA? And then I start putting like this one and one together, kind of making it two. And I start looking at the content slate that you also put up, because I would always look at certain people like, who the fuck is this guy? Where does Adam get this motherfucker to put him on camera? And you do know, you're stirring up. I'm not saying you're like telling people to do dumb shit, but you do know No Jumper is very in tune with what's happening in the gang ecosphere in LA.
I mean, if you're going to be tuned in to what's popping in any rap scene in any city in America, I feel like you're basically going to end up having conversations about gangs and street shit. Like, that's just where you end up, especially if you're in LA like us. It's just, that's the shit that's going on. Like, it's pretty tough to talk about LA rappers without pretty quickly arriving at where they're from and what they represent, because of the fact that so many people don't get along and you can't have them around each other and whatnot. I mean, so from our perspective, like, if you look at No Jumper pre-AD, was I doing gangster ass interviews? Yes, but not nearly as much, and I didn't understand as much, like, I remember even the first time I got into it with Wack was pre-AD. That was like 2019. And I'm sitting there having a conversation with Wack with Blueface right next to him. And we're talking about Nipsey dying. And Wack, for some reason, he's forever down to die on a weird hill. And his hill that he was down to die on that day was basically saying that Nipsey wasn't a legend because he didn't sell enough records or whatever, which, okay, he wasn't exactly like, Kendrick or Cole in terms of how many albums he sold. But to call him a legend seems prudent from LA, and especially when you see how big the specter of his life still looms over Los Angeles all these years later. But in the middle of it, Blueface is sitting there just munching on chips, just fucking like not a care in the world. And I'm thinking in my head, like, what the fuck is this? You're a Crip, and I'm talking about the most famous dead Crip of the last 20 years. And you're sitting there munching on pretzels or some shit like nothing's going on. And then I figure it out later on that where he's from doesn't necessarily get along with where Nipsey's coming from or whatever. And like, I was so oblivious and blind to how serious that shit is at that time. And Wack ends up getting mad at me around that time because of the fact that I was doing podcasts with people like BH and Jay Stone and all these guys who are close to Nipsey. And I was talking to them and they were, just talking about shit. And I'm saying, well, how you feel about Wack saying that Nipsey ain't a legend? And they're all saying basically fuck him, or like, insinuating that they were going to do something to him. That's why Wack got mad at me in the first place. But
do you ever feel like you're flying too close to the sun in the sense of maybe a conversation or maybe something that happens at No Jumper might turn into some shit that happens obviously outside of No Jumper, but then they're going to reference it back to, well, it started because he said this on No Jumper. Like, that's why I kind of stay away from certain of those things right now, because I'm like, you know what? Like, yo, like, I'm still getting like the remnants of the Warren Chirac kind of off of me. That's kind of like,
but I was just thinking about that. Don't you wish you kept doing the Warren Chirac?
Not necessarily the Warren Chirac.
You would be so badass if you had just been doing that channel for an extra 10 years. You would have made millions of dollars, and it would have been fucking sick. And you never would have got a Spotify deal, but it wouldn't matter. It would be badass.
Well, I wish I could still, or kept doing like really raw content that, like, put like this, the shit that I'm innately, and I think you too, drawn to is not the shit you see on Twitter all the time and plastered across every headline. Like, at times I act oblivious to shit, but like, I know the real shit going on, and that's where the real story is. Mm. But like, you almost kind of get criticized in my position and be like, hey, out of everything you could put your platform on, they almost make it, they're going to tie the rope around your neck in a sense and blame it on you.
Yeah, but anyway. But you open the door for people like 1090 Jake to be out here just telling any disgusting tale that happened between any gang ever. like if you had doubled down and said, fuck the war on Chirac, I'm doing the war on America, and just hired a bunch of little people to help you write scripts and talk about the worst shit that was happening in all these different cities, it would have been a very different past 10 years of your life.
I love 1090 Jake just because, and I told him this too. I said, yo, you're the new guy. And I've always said, I say, yo, you're going to have to make decisions that I made.
Yeah.
You're going to get cool with rappers. People are going to try to make you their friends because they know they got dirty shit against them. How honest are you going to keep it? And then how are you going to react when people really hate you? Because they're all going to turn on you. At first, they're going to love you, be like, oh, this is cool because you're not talking about them. And then when you eventually talk about them, they're all going to hate you. And yeah, you can say, yeah, you made your money, but like now you're going to kind of almost feel shitty about what you're doing because, yeah, the fans like you, but like now everybody's is going to reimagine what you're doing and make it really negative. Like you're the reason why crime exists and why, you know, like, oh, you did a video on this rapper who snitched. He couldn't rap anymore, so he killed someone. If you didn't do, they're not going to blame him for the killing. If you didn't do the rapper, if you didn't do the video on the rapper that killed his career, he would have never killed somebody.
But
that's how they were doing to me in the war of Chirac.
This is the whole thing, is that you basically have to choose as a content creator, do you want to be a great interviewer or do you want to be a great commentator? Because as soon as you start commentating a little bit too much, then you're not going to be able to get the interviews with the really important people. If you're willing to sit and have an honest conversation about Nicki Minaj, you're ensuring that Nicki Minaj is never going to fucking sit down with you. And when you look at people who really like win long-term as interviewers independently, because obviously you have a huge advantage if you're at a radio station or something, but take somebody like Nardwuar. Nardwuar will never sit and have a conversation about Youngboy fucking beefing with Vaughn. He'll never like tell you anything about it. Like if you watch his interviews and stuff, I'm sure you can figure out stuff about him, but his content is not personal at all. And as a result, you have every pop star, every rapper, etc., who's down to talk to Nardwuar because there's like no reason that you can come up with to dislike him. Whereas for an Akademiks or an Adam 22, there's a whole list of reasons to not fuck with us. And if you fuck with us, you are very much choosing to kind of like ignore a bunch of shit, because almost everybody that you could interview probably you shit on somebody that they're super cool with, and you just kind of have to navigate that. But I mean, from my perspective, it's like I'm kind of like playing both sides of it, where I end up having honest conversations on the podcast, and I want to be better at just having takes and talking about shit honestly. But if you're really willing to go all the way in on commentary, you're just not going to be able to rub shoulders with the A-listers in the game, you know? And people like Big Boy are able to like interview the biggest names in the game because you just don't know Big Boy to have an offensive thing to say about celebrities. That's just not really his game. And he uses that perfectly.
I remember seeing you in the same room. I don't know if you were interviewing Thug, and then Future walks in, and I was like, I think both of these guys fucking hate me. Like, I was like, at least Adam gets to be there. I think I've given commentary about, like, one time I heard it, like, someone was like, yo, yeah, Future don't really fuck with you. I'm like, why not? And I'm like, yo, probably big this guy up out of everybody, but it's like, yo, I might have made a commentary one time about one particular thing, and I might have went in hard on him, pause. And you know what I mean? Obviously, don't like me from that. But yo, what do you think about Gunna? Who's getting that first interview?
Like I don't know what I said wrong about Soulja Boy. You know, it's like I just like at some point we've just all said enough about Soulja Boy, and I feel like I've really avoided it because I mean, Teddy Riley, or I hope I'm not fucking it up. I think it was Teddy Riley, right? He was on fucking Vlad talking about Soulja Boy beating his daughter and shit like that. Like I never talked about that on camera. So for me, it's like Soulja Boy should be my homie because I never jumped on the most obvious conversation in the world, which is like act holier than thou about somebody who got caught up beating their girl, whatever. But in terms of Gunna, who's getting the first interview? I mean, it's probably like who's going to throw the hardest softballs? Who's going to be the friendliest? Who's going to be the nicest? I feel like a lot of the like down south circuit I feel like like Big Facts might be accommodating to him, or I don't know, like somebody who's going to ask him some questions but really not dig in at all.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm at the point where I'm done. Like Gunna has like this legion of fans, and they've now casted me as a hater. But Thug's father came out and was like, "Yo, what he said? He said, hey, we don't got no problem with Gunna." So now everybody's like, "Wait, I thought you said." Listen, at this point, I'm like, "Yo, listen," because you talk to rappers behind the scenes. Every rapper I talk to behind the scenes that's cool with Thug, like they're not gonna say it. But they're all saying we're not fucking with them. and they're not fucking with him for clear reason. Right?
Know,
it's not like they're
dad,
like, oh.
Like, do we know how close Thug is to his dad? Because what are the odds that his dad is just hella tweaked out, saying shit for the clout, and doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about? He could be a drunk motherfucker who's just really kind of like standing around outside the crib talking about shit, and he just said something that Thug would never agree to, which to me seems obvious when you see how coordinated shit was of rappers dropping their projects or whatever around the time of Gunna dropping his project and all the unfollows and shit. Like, Dirk is just not thinking that up without fucking Thug at some point co-signing this as the movement, right?
Yo, put it like this. I personally got this. Obviously, I'm not going to snitch on my source, but I personally got this. Don't ask me how I got it. From the only person who would have or should have got it from. That voice note that Thug, which by the way, it's on the jail calls. Like, that's not no secret cell phone he has. He literally called a bunch of artists and said, yo, and it was supposed to be a whole thing. Anyway, I put it out, at least the one that was meant for Dirk. And you know what people say? Yo, that's AI. That's when I realized that there's a legion of fans that just want to believe somehow Young Thug is in jail just rooting for Gunna like, yo, we love him. Now, I'm not picking sides here, but clearly, dude, he doesn't feel that way.
Well, it's like the way also what I assume happened with his dad. Like, you know how like there'll always be a headline that is like Fredo Bang says he does not have beef with NBA YoungBoy, and it's like, okay, yeah, he said that. He was obviously fucking with you, and you're just not smart enough to get it. But people will just roll with it and just act like it's a real thing. The same way that, like, I mean, you remember when FBG Cash was saying, oh, Lil Durk told me to go take a photo at the King Von Memorial, and people were reporting on it like this is a real thing. It's like they're trolling the media to piss off their ops, and you guys are too fucking stupid to get it, which is the problem with when it was just us interviewing rappers and talking about rappers. It was a lot easier to get to the real thing that was going on, and now you got so many fucking Bobby Altoffs in the mix.
Fool, though.
Huh?
I got even fooled. Like, when I interviewed, I did the King Von's like last interview, and he literally, when I asked him about Duck, he's like, yo, we squashed the beef. Yeah. We squashed the beef before he died. And then all of a sudden, he put the camera up and I hear snickering, but I'm not connecting it. But I was like, no, his mom said, I did squash the beef. He's like, how's the mom going to know? I really squashed the beef with him. And I believed it for 2 seconds. And I felt stupid believing that because in the moment, just being so caught up in the interview, I'm like, maybe he really did. Then I realized Von's the biggest troll ever.
Yeah. The whole cereal thing, I wasn't up on that. I wish I knew about all that shit when I fucking interviewed him. It would have been so sick.
Yeah, no, of course. What else is going on in hip hop? Hey, do you get into these girls beef or no? Like you know, the girls, they're all going at each other.
Which one?
Nicki and Cardi.
I mean, a little bit. I seen you reporting on the fucking Cardi Meg war. I mean, it's cool, but I don't know. I kind of have a hard time like getting like super invested in it. I'm more into the pop star wars. Olivia Rodrigo and Taylor Swift. I heard they don't fuck with each other. That's like the new YoungBoy and Dirk.
Hey, speaking of which, because I know clearly you obviously, I don't even think people, obviously you have a root in hip hop, but I think No Jumper is not just a hip hop podcast. Like for example, I could see like you getting like with Destiny. Like I love when Destiny gets on your channel, this and third. You know, it's more open. Anyway.
No, okay, but I want to say this is that so you, I think like when you came into podcasting, you sort of thought you were only going to talk to the top rappers or whatever, and I think you kind of got like a reality check that there's not that many top rappers, and that a lot of these like you kind of have to end up interviewing a J Mane or a John Zerka or whatever, because I mean really at the end of the day, if you ask me or you, we're kind of limiting ourselves by thinking about ourselves as like hip hop commentators or hip hop content creators, because we've seen with Speed and Kai and Aiden that it's not really about hip hop. It's about just making entertaining content, and people want to see that shit. And the more that you like focus in and make yourself like super hip hop specific, I mean, I think you're kind of like limiting yourself, because the fans just want to have a good time. They want to see entertaining content. And I think just like really committing yourself to only talking about hip hop will kind of limit you in that way, right?
Yes, like with me, like there's definitely a strong foothold in hip hop, because like I kind of branded myself as, yo, I'm gonna give you like the insider shit. It's like, you remember ESPN insiders? They're gonna tell you what's really going on in the locker room. So like that's why I always like beyond the story, I'm gonna always let people know what the fuck is going on behind the scenes. I might not give up the names, but I'm gonna give you the relevant conversations. I think that kind of gets a lot of people like, yo, we really fuck with him for that. But there's definitely a ceiling to it, right? Like there's like, I feel like I've hit my head on that ceiling multiple times to say, hey, as a hip hop platform, is there any more growth, realistic growth to be had? Or do I have to kind of expand outside of hip hop? I mean, I've kind of turned into like the pivot in sense to say, well, you got all the dudes that like music, right? But there's women that also like music, even if they don't like music as much. You need to also cater to women a bit. But yeah, like I just feel like there's a ceiling though.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I think about that a lot too. Like at this point, the biggest rapper interview I get is still like gonna gain us like probably like a couple thousand subscribers or whatever. Whereas like I think we got like the most subscribers we ever got in a day from the day that Blueface fucking got his bitch thrown out of here with Sharp or whatever. Like because that actually like expands and goes into a different category, you know. And it's like at a certain point, whether it's me, you, like, and I always see like younger creators talking about like, oh yeah, like doing content isn't about money or whatever. It's about getting a new audience. And it's like, I remember when I felt that way. I remember when I was still optimistic about growing my audience. Cause at a certain point, it's like, you just kind of feel like, oh, everybody in this space already fucking knows who I am. And so it's just, the world doesn't seem as open and infinite at a certain point. Once you really like,
at this point, I feel like we all have these waves. So it's like, oh, okay. Like if I drop like a fire interview, right? Like after the Dirk shit, everybody's like, yo, we want to, like right now is very so Dirk YoungBoy centric. We're all going to act. And then when you have something pop off, it could be with like anything that's viral. It could be with YBJ Maine or anything else that happens. People are going to you a lot to say, oh, okay, we want to kind of like, but there's nobody in the space that knows me that I don't think knows you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's why it's kind of pointless to like beef and shit at a certain point because it's just not really going to do anything for you. Whereas like if YoungBoy said, fuck Adam 22 or put my name in a song or whatever like Baby did with you, that's huge. That's like fucking making you a part of the conversation in a way that is way, way, way different.
Yo, that's why I stopped going back and forth with your co-host. Like, bro, I felt stupid. Like, I'm very emotional with like my responses, and I don't really care about the size or whatever of like who I'm responding to. And I think I responded once, they responded, then I responded again, and then all of a sudden I could feel it was gonna be like, oh no, we're doing this tit for tat thing like long term wise, and you're about to just like build this person up. And I only ever did that, even though it wasn't a back and forth, it was just pure hate with Ruri and Millie Mall. And I really dislike that motherfuckers.
I don't feel like they ever really like appreciated being part of your narrative in a way that like you saw with Bricc Baby when they told him on the news that Ak had a clip up about you or whatever. He's like, oh hell yeah, Ak clout boost, yeah, or some shit like that. Which I don't think Rory or Ma were ever happy that you were talking about him.
Yeah, but they don't understand like the space like that. Like they're supposed to want to take part in that. They're supposed to want to, like, those dudes were so, and that's what I was even telling AD, I'm like, you can't lay down and die.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, all right, cool. You might feel like you guys are doing other things, but once Adam now is finally responded, you got to defend yourself a little bit because the audience wants to, it's still kind of like the gladiator type of wave. But here's the thing. You can't kill an Adam 22. You can't kill a Vlad. You can't kill Akademiks. If you're not those people, you could have these drastic spikes because you're not synonymous with what's going on the daily or weekly occurrence of how the news cycle is, right? So it's like, you got to, like, if you're trying to really make it and you're not them, you got to make your name be heard consistently in the cycle. Shit, I remember, like, yo, these days, I really like beefing with rappers. Like, sometimes I'm like, damn, I'm friends with too many of these motherfuckers. You know what I mean? And I'm like, when Baby dissed me, I was like, great. When Meg dissed me, I was like, lovely. When Erykah Badu, I just went crazy on.
Well, that's one thing that I really appreciated or, you know, thought was kind of fascinating because I had never really thought about like the origins of the Vaughn and YoungBoy thing. And when you really go back to it, and Chapo Ross's documentary kind of made this point, it's like, yes, there was shit with girls that caused tension, but really at the end of the day, I think Vaughn was cynical and devious enough to realize that you're only going to get so far beefing with FBG Duck. You know, like Duck is just not a national artist to the extent that somebody like Youngboy is. And Vaughn realized, like, well, I'm a real killer. This guy is you know, to whatever extent, not as serious about the street life as me. I might as well just beef with Youngboy, and yeah, it's gonna make a bunch of people hate me, but fuck it, I could just do it. Like, who gives a shit? And nothing's better than Chicago. I'm going crazy on him. So, like, I mean, that's like evil as fuck, but also genius as fuck, because you're really like, but then at the same time, I feel like, you know, I don't think Loon has got a great reception from basically trying to Youngboy you out the game. Like, he thinks he's Vaughn and he thinks you're Youngboy. It doesn't seem like it's really working out.
I thought that was a misstep. I thought it was a misstep by him, but also I still think it's a misstep by Charlemagne as well. I think Charlemagne is kind of putting a horse bet on him being maybe close to what Taxstone is, except like he's not nowhere close to being a great orator like Taxstone. He has zero real organic energy. Like, Taxstone was the guy on Twitter that was so aggressive, that was so on it, and so much had like this audience that even if you wanted to ignore him, you kind of couldn't. And when he came to the podcast game, he was one of those first Twitter people that it transcended. So, like, that guy, like, you know what I mean? I realized, like, actually Joe told me this, and that's why I stopped responding to your co-host as well, though. It was just like, hey, listen, some of these guys, you could just weed out. Like, obviously get your shit off, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, drop 30 on them or drop 60, but after that, let them sit with your voice being louder, and then let them now fight those narratives while you don't respond. Like, that Loon nigga, I will never respond to him again.
Right.
But you kind of did that. I think you were kind of doing that. Well, you bombed on a little bit. What's the dude on Joe Budden's podcast? And by the way, what's up with you and Joe? There's something going on there.
Yeah, there's something going on. I mean, I could get into it a little bit. I mean, I just felt like I didn't appreciate the fact that Joe basically, like, I always appreciated you and respected the fact that in 2018, when I first got Me Too'd, that I hit you up and you gave me a sympathetic platform, in the sense that, yes, you were fucking with me a little bit and asking me questions, and you were repeating shit that was being said in the chat and stuff, and trying to get to you were being fair while still keeping it a little bit entertaining. But, you know, when all that shit was going down, when people trying to like re-cancel me, I had multiple different people in the industry hit me up because it was being advertised that I was going to be on Joe Budden's AMP show. I had multiple different people in the industry telling me, don't do it, because Joe Budden is a fucking scumbag and he's just going to, you know, fuck with you and like make the shit entertaining or whatever. And over here, I'm a fucking idiot thinking that Joe's a decent guy. And I think, oh, I'm going to go on this podcast with him and he's going to be, you know, at least help me. You could say whatever, repeat whatever shit there's been in the media. Because keep in mind, nothing new was coming to the table at this point. It was just a rehash of shit that had already been said about me. And Joe instead gave me like the shittiest, most annoying fucking answers to like everything, and totally like, you know, basically screwed me over. And the reason why I did that is because of the fact that I showed up solo dolo to his fucking basement and did that podcast with all of them, cooked them, won the battle. His Reddit voted that I won the battle. And I kind of like took a little victory lap and had multiple clips about it where I was, you know, celebrating the fact that I washed a bunch of old ass men in a basement. And I think Joe like really kind of took that personal and decided to kind of intentionally try to inflict pain upon me during the course of that piece of content. And I really didn't appreciate it. And I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I do have so much respect for Joe as a content creator and everything that he's brought to the table. Like, I can't ignore that. But also, I felt like I saw his true colors in that piece of content, and basically just makes me like, oh, why didn't I? It's like when you're fucking with a girl and everybody telling you she's a piece of shit, and then at some point you figure out she's a piece of shit. It's like, oh, why the fuck was I not listening to all these people who told me like that I was crazy for fucking with Joe like that?
Yeah, the only thing I was really surprised by, I had heard that interview, which I thought was going to be very sympathetic, because I heard that was supposed to be an introduction to you having an AMP show. And I was like, okay, so this is the, hey, welcome to AMP thing. And it turned into, you're a piece of shit, crush him.
Because Joe is a jealous motherfucker who, of course, he sees somebody else getting some money he's probably getting way more at that time, but he sees somebody else gonna get some, and somebody who just watched him on his own platform. Obviously, Joe's gonna want to do something about that, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I haven't seen him handle many people in the media like you. And I don't know if that energy only comes from what you're saying in terms of when you went there the first time. I think it was almost like, hey, listen, you know what? Like, this is kind of like Vlad Jr., and we could just say fuck. Because I think if it was anybody else, I think he would have dealt with it a little bit different. Like you've seen, he went with Gillian Wallo. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they had a couple little jabs here and there, but they all sat down and shit. If anything, that shit was really like constructive and it was really respectful. You know what I mean? Your shit was kind of like, drop the guillotine on this motherfucker's neck, man.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. Like Joe's channel gets like 10 million views a month. No Jumper last month, I think, got like 45 million. So he said something to AD about how we were irrelevant. So I'm still trying to figure out how we're doing like 5 times as many views as you and we're irrelevant. But I guess there are certain things that we'll never know. I also just wanted to say this. I have to go after this because I have to do an interview. But I have a huge amount of respect for Tony Yayo. You want to know why? Because Tony Yayo, when G-Unit blew up and 50 was, at the helm of that shit, he knew that no matter what, even if he had to deal with some ups and downs, some bumps on the road, he knew that he had to hold 50 down because 50 was the superstar. And everything good that came to him in his career was as a result of the fact that 50 was a superstar and he was 50's boy from back in the day. Now, this is all respect due to Yayo because I always loved him and I love him on Vlad, and I'm glad to see him back in the public eye more. But I say all that to say I think AD lost sight of the fact that I'm 50 and he's Yayo. Yeah. I'm just saying, like that really is what happened. And so,
you call AD Tony Yayo.
But Yayo never tried to start H Unit. He never tried to start Q Unit. I don't know. But like, I think AD at a certain point, he believed that he really was that guy. And that was not, and he found out that he wasn't in a very painful way.
Oh, you gotta stop.
I'm being real.
Stop, bro. You gotta stop.
Yo, I got all the love in the world for him. When he's ready to go to come back, I'll be here. 50 will always be here. No. Nah, actually, if you violate 50 one time, you're never coming back. So I guess it is a little different.
No, man, he not know. You understand if you say the game or Lloyd Ben, you can't say. No, come on. Yo, eventually y'all gonna squash that, man. I'm telling you, it's gonna be a beautiful time. I do think you're poking at AD. I don't even think does he respond? He doesn't respond, right? I think one time though he's going to let loose, and this is the only thing. And we can wrap after this. This is the only thing I've always thought about you doing that with people that have ever been around me. Not like there are like fucking really secrets to be held, but sometimes you don't want to get in a war of words with them. You know what I mean? Like he's probably seen shit or known things about you. You don't want him to be like I know a person like me. When it's there, it's there. So it's like, all right, fuck it. We about to just
everything AD. Listen,
I'm gonna start the dynamite.
Everything AD got to say, he already said a long time ago. So I mean, I don't think he got anything left in the tank. I mean, what are you gonna say about me? Oh, you're gonna call me a rapist and a pedophile. You're gonna point out that a guy fucked my wife. You're gonna say you're a pussy. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm a pussy. You're gonna say you're tough. Okay, yeah, you're tough. I mean, like, what do we really? What's still on the table that's gonna be so devastating and career-ending for me that hasn't already been said?
Hey, listen, this is why you always got to have something in the tuck. You know what I mean?
Well, you're going to call me racist? I mean, I've been called racist by Better. I'm going to be real. Like, no offense to him, but like, I've had the best in the business call me racist, and I'm still out here. Black dude in the background.
Yo, first of all, you've 8-miled yourself. I still think that there's ways, but anyway, listen, hopefully everything goes good, man. Yo,
we should do this more often.
Last thing. I don't know when you're coming on this coast next. I know I'll be on the West Coast. Either I gotta actually really lock down the time because we have a bunch of things we gotta get done over there. You will have Bricc Baby at the crib, right?
We will keep
Sit there,
we'll keep you away from the Bricc, just like we keep Bricc away from the Whack and Whack away from the Crip Mac and all this shit. But hey, we also got to work on the end of the year awards because we are gonna take over. We don't have a name yet. We don't have an LLC yet. But Adam, Vlad, Akademiks, and Sean Cotton are coming together because all these award shows suck ass and dog dick. We cannot let these motherfuckers tell the story of who's doing the best shit in this community at this point in time. We need a panel of real motherfuckers who know what's going on to actually announce who's the best.
The hip hop platform, like nominees, like I couldn't even give that energy. I couldn't even waste breath on it. Like, yo, BT is so trash. And you know what? Like, I feel like every time I go off on them, it almost gives them type of energy. But man, yeah, I agree with you. Let's do our own shit and let's keep that shit going.
That's why I thought the funniest shit was as soon as T-Rail leaves No Jumper, he clicks up with BET. I'm like, oh, all right, here we go. Ops clicking up. Here we go.
Yo, you gotta stop taking shots at these guys, man. But hold on, who you interviewing?
No comment. I don't want to put their safety at risk. But
Gay Crip again.
No, I mean, if he came
these
in
guys
here,
recurring contracts.
Huh?
You signed these guys to recurring contracts, like for example, J-Mane's been on the platform like 10 times.
J-Mane only been on the platform like 3 or 4 times, so it's not that serious. But
I'm looking at flips.
I mean,
yeah, you at least give like a little 10-day contract.
Anybody who's seeing motion, you got to get them in a contract for sure. But I mean, try to avoid it until you got to do it.
Hey, by the way, last question.
Yeah.
You know, you threw your little joints, I gotta throw my joints. Hey, I remember the whole conversation I was having with Sharp when he said he was not a worker. That was when he was saying he was a partner with the Sharp Tank. I see that nigga on the news. I see that nigga everywhere. I see that nigga sweeping up the place one time.
Nah,
could you admit now? Could you admit now here? Could you admit?
Much respect to the DJ Akademiks plantation or whatever you call it, and whoever you got working on your farm. But Sharp fucking kills it. He's a great guy. We have incentivized him to take part in things with money by coming and doing shit like the news. People love Sharp. Yes, he's got bad breath. He smokes parliaments all day. It is what it is. But I'm just kidding. He don't got bad breath. But he's got like intense cigarette breath sometimes. But so shout out to the Sharp Tank. Coolest, sharpest, most academic podcast in the world. Ha ha, I just outroed you. You're still going to be on stream, so it won't matter.
Is he the best janitor at No Jumper?
I've never seen his sweeping skills, but if you've got a niece who wants to go make some money at a truck stop, I think he could definitely take care of you.
Hey man, all right, Adam. All right, this is good, man. Hey, listen, you know, we got to get up a couple more times before the end of the year, but of course, we're going to get that together. If you guys didn't realize what we kind of already told you was coming, some more content, man. Yeah.